Hello and welcome to the Actual Tech Media MegaCast. My name is Jess and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information to cover with you. Let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. Now, if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Also, keep in mind that if you have any tech issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you. So throughout today's MegaCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all of your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. And if we do not get to your question during the webinar, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us today will be following up with you after we wrap. All right, next up on our tour, there are going to be lots of cool aha moments in the MegaCast today, and if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's MegaCast will automatically get added to your post. And our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the Handouts tab for some resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection of solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. And if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes we will be giving away throughout the MegaCast today. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. You do need to be in attendance here live at the webinar in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all winners after we wrap the MegaCast today. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, hey, if you're not sure what those are, no problem. You can find the full T's and C's in that Handouts tab. Again, just click into the Handouts section, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find the full T's and C's waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember here today is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. In today's MegaCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all the questions asked after the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about winning, and we will get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the MegaCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going. So let's connect on social. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content right away after we wrap, you want to jump right in, make sure that you subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and to grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you're going to find a link to do that right there in that Handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected after we wrap today. Now, both you and your coworker, your friend, could win a prize, and we actually hold those drawings every month. So be sure you refer somebody awesome before you head out today. It could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your Handouts tab and fill out the application. Then the Actual Tech crew will match you with some vendors that we think you should be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you can choose to join in, like surveys or test running new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you will learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker in your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, how to prevent and recover. The site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. So go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books are going to work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and they are completely free, super easy. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in the handouts tab as well. Okay, well, we've covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in, so let's get rolling.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Actual Tech Media MegaCast. Today's topic is understanding your cloud-native data protection and disaster recovery options. I want to start by thanking everyone for joining us today. Checking the questions tab. You guys are checking in from everywhere, all over the country, and we are so delighted to see all of you here today. This is just great. So today you'll be hearing from experts across a huge range of companies, from Rubrik to HPE to Kasten by Veeam, Commvault, Nasuni, and Cohesity. That is quite the lineup. So if you're cloud native, either in whole or in part, this is top of mind for you these days. So the timing of this MegaCast is absolutely perfect. So settle in and get ready to learn. All right, I am Keith Ward, an Actual Tech Media moderator, and you've already met Jess there. Scott Becker's also lurking around here somewhere, and David Davis is going to take over for me for the second half of the event, and we are really excited to have David on today as well. And some of you have already been asking about this. In addition to the content, you are in for some awesome prizes today, too. We will be giving away 5 iPad Airs and $300 Amazon gift cards every 30 minutes. Does that sound good to you? Well, if it does, you're in the right place. As Jess said in the video, though, you have to be in attendance during the entire event to qualify for the prizes, and all the winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. If you're into reading really boring stuff, you can find those terms and conditions in the handouts tab. All right. So with that, let's get on to the fun stuff. Joining us for our keynote presentation is independent security expert Evgeny Karam, and he is here to run down some of our cloud-native data protection and disaster recovery options. Evgeny is ready to go, so let's get into it.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here today and speak about this very, very important part, how we protect cloud, especially when so many different applications right now in a cloud. For the last 3-4 years during the pandemic, many companies realize the importance of data, the importance of access to the data, and that you're not always capable to go back to the server room and reboot your server. And there is a lot of sense to move your data to the cloud. You may saw something familiar when I show identify, protect, detect, and respond to recover. And yes, you're absolutely right. This is the representation of the NIST framework. In this case, is NIST framework 1.1. Literally a couple of weeks ago, there was an announcement of NIST framework 2.0. Right now, they're reviewing what needs to be done there, but we're not going to talk about NIST. We're going to talk about cloud, but we're going to see through NIST lens what's important and how it's important. So let's begin. If you talk about identify, it's an important part. If I don't know what I need to protect, how can I protect it? If I have a house, I need to understand how to lock the house. So I need to understand where are all my doors, where are all my windows, and other ways to get into the house. Same idea with the cloud. I need to understand my assets and then figure out the best way to protect it. Before we go there, cloud comes in different shapes and form. There is definitely IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. IaaS, the 3 biggest one are Azure, AWS, and GCP. PaaS, there are many options for them, like Salesforce, Office 365, for example, and SaaS. We have gazillions of them. But we're going to focus on IaaS. And why? Because with SaaS, we pretty much rely on our vendor to do the protection, assets, backups, and all the controls for us. For PaaS, it's a bit in the middle, but still quite a lot of stuff are dependent on the cloud provider. And with IaaS, it's mainly on us. They provide us the compute, they give us the access, they give us the tools, and we can build whatever we think we want to build. So protect. Here's come the part when we understand our assets, and now we need to understand how to protect them. And there's multiple things here. So what are the assets that are in our IaaS, AWS, Azure, GCP? There is many of them, but the main part going to be compute, function, serverless, containers, databases, storage, and IAM roles. By understanding these assets, I now can come up with the ways to architect them, to protect them, and very, very important as well, to back up the configuration and back up the data that I have. And there's multiple ways to back up the data and the information. I can have encrypted backup, encrypted data. I can do it every time. I can do it several times a day. But it's important because after we understand our assets and we know how to protect it and how to design this, we want to make sure we have good protection in case of malware, in case of user errors, because of many different things. We want to get back very, very quickly. And it may sound easy, but it's not always easy because there's a lot of different functions and a lot of different options to how we back up, where we back up, same place, same users, definitely not, what IAM role we provide as well. There are going to be many people after me that are much smarter than me. They're going to go deep in ways to protect and back up your data as well later on. I'm just doing a quick introduction about what I think is important. Let's talk about detect. So I have identification of the data. I know how to protect it, but I still want to understand what's happening with the data. If it's running out of space, how is our auto scaling working? Do I need potentially to change my environment? Do I potentially maybe need to move from EC2 to serverless or containers? In case of AWS and Azure GCP, going to have a bit different naming convention. And I really want to know what's happening with my data flow, how the traffic runs inside my environment. Is it very optimized? If it's not optimized, and if I know how the traffic runs, I will also know how to potentially restore. And if I need to do high availability between different locations as well. I definitely want logs. I want information about what's happening in my environment. There's multiple ways to get the logs, especially in the cloud. It could be a bit tricky because it's designed to scale. And in some cases, I may have a server, EC2, or serverless, even better example, to come up for a short period of time, like very short period of time, and come down. And you need to determine based on your design architecture, do you want logs? Do you want information? What happened? This can help you to detect problems on a security level. This can also help you to detect problems on a function level, and maybe you need to change something in the way you scale your environment. This will help you to understand the impact and definitely testing. So by testing, I mean, you want to test your procedures. You want to test how you deploy. You want to test how you detect stuff as well. We're going to jump to procedures even more right now when we're going to click to respond. Respond is the part where something potentially happened or we anticipating something happened. And in this case, we need to do basically communication inside the company. We want to understand how our backups are working, how our procedures are working. I think procedures are fundamental. Some people also call them playbooks. This is basically what happened if something happened and how do we respond to this. Not just kind of, yes, we're going to respond to this, but I can actually write all the information. I can write the procedures. I can change the procedure. I can make them better to make sure people can reply quick. Time to value is fundamentally important. I'm a big believer of time to value as well. And here's the interesting part. How do I know? How can I actually test all this if nothing happened? We can do pen testing. We can do red teaming exercise and check how our procedures are working. This also could be a part where we have small incidents that the environment didn't act as we wanted. Potentially, we have too many ports that open, or we deployed something with an open port, or with open S3 bucket or blob. This is what happened here, and we were able to change what we do and reflect as well. And the last step in NIST, and I really hope you guys will never get there, only if you're testing the environment and doing some kind of a BCP planning, is recover. And this just means that something happened in the environment and you need to get back, you need to back up your data, not back up your data, recover your data. You need to go up and running. You're potentially losing money here because the environment is down. So it's fundamental here to understand the impact, come back quickly, communicate to the right people, because in this case, versus respond, you're probably communicating not just internally, you're probably communicating externally to the people as well, to your customers. You may need to enrich to involve incident response. You're probably doing forensic to understand exactly what happened and if the bad guys are no longer in your environment. And after all this, you probably will need to do some changes in your architecture, in your procedures as well, to make sure it will not happen later on. Thank you very much, and back to you guys.
Okay. Hey, Evgeny, thank you for that awesome keynote. Some really good information there. Before we get to the first session of the day, now we have a quick poll question for you. Let us know what your timeline is for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company. This is really good stuff for us to know. Is it happening soon? Are you on a longer scale at present? We are quite interested in seeing your thoughts on this. Now, I want to thank everyone who answered that poll. We've got some great feedback coming in on time frames. A lot of you are not sure. Some of you are looking at a 2-year window, others at a 1-year window. So the answers are quite varied, as are all of you. So I'm going to keep this up for a few more seconds. And this is your final chance to vote before we get to our first session of the day. And it is time for that right now. So our first presenter today is Rubrik. And presenting for Rubrik is Valentin Cantu, a solutions engineer. Valentin, welcome. Thanks for being here today. And I will turn it over to you now.
Hello, everybody. My name is Valentin Cantu. I'm a solutions engineer at Rubrik, and today I'm going to be showing you how you can secure your multi-cloud and hybrid cloud environment with Rubrik. Throughout the presentation, we're going to be talking a bit about some cloud market outlooks, some cloud pain points, how Rubrik can help you protect your Microsoft 365 environment, and how Rubrik can help you protect your cloud and hybrid cloud environments. And we'll top it all off with some customer feedback at the end. So I want to start off by quickly pointing out that the threat of ransomware is not exclusive to on-prem workloads. In the market today, we can see that movement to the cloud is gaining steam at a breakneck speed. In 2022 alone, cloud providers have raked in over 1.3 trillion with a T in enterprise IT spend, and they host about 50% of enterprise data. So it is no coincidence that issues have presented themselves from every possible angle. In fact, just last year, cloud security breaches have surpassed on-prem breaches for the first time in history.
A bit about Rubrik. In 2014, we pioneered the concept of zero trust data protection, focusing on immutable air-gapped backups and allowing for instant recovery, all governed by business-driven service-level agreements, better known as SLAs. As requirements and industries changed, we introduced cloud data management, consolidating on-prem and cloud backup and recovery management into a single pane of glass, facilitating for cloud archival and recovery, and even automating the process. More recently, we pioneered data security, serving as the last line of defense, equipped with tools such as ransomware monitoring, sensitive data discovery, and threat hunting, resulting in continuous monitoring of data risks, allowing for speedy remediation. Rubrik is helping industries protect, manage, and secure their data. To better understand, let's look at the pervasive problems at hand affecting organizations across all industries. Despite bottomless investments in infrastructure security tools, cybercriminals are still showing this unique ability to bypass all of these investments. So much money is spent on people, process technology, infrastructure security, literally anything to keep the cybercriminals out. But there will always be a human error component. People click on things. There's also zero-day vulnerabilities, and the absolute worst possible outcome, a bad actor is in and on a network, able to traverse any and all data. What we have also noticed over the last couple of years is a change in the behavior of these bad actors. Most, if not all, consist of an attacker leaving a ransom note to the tune of, I have all of your data and I'm going to delete it. You could bring in a forensics team to work on the attack for weeks, but because these bad actors have established persistence via a backdoor, the forensics team simply cannot tell you what data was exfiltrated. So you have to infer that the minimum amount of data they likely had access to is the minimum we have to consider exfiltrated. After they finish the exfiltration, the next step is making sure all backups of data are deleted such that the customer has no ability to recover from a backup. Bad actors, these cyber criminals, are great at sharing documentation on methods to defeat each type of backup solution, the most common being expiring the backups. They then encrypt the data and leave a ransom note. And when they take the data down, they take down the entire business. So Rubrik's goal here is to ensure that we can always recover by building resiliency into the point of data. Now let me be clear, Rubrik isn't meant to replace any investments you have already made. Rather, it's meant to solve for those crucial gaps in recovery workflows. In fact, ransomware attacks are shining a spotlight on why it is so important to integrate data security into your data management platform and IT operations. So here's what many organizations are experiencing today. Attackers are penetrating perimeter defenses and locking down data. So organizations have two fundamental options. Option one, pay the ransom. Even if ransomware demands are met, however, there is no guarantee that the attacker will provide a decryption key that will unlock encrypted data within an acceptable time frame. And even if they do provide a key, they're just going to reinfect the system. So your second option, attempt to recover. So first, IT and security teams will turn to their backup data, and they'll ask, can we even recover at this point? If that data is compromised by ransomware, the organization may not be able to. That's the cold hard truth. Over 80% of the time, criminals attack backups first and foremost because they know that once the backups get compromised, then they have won. And even if the organization can get access to backup data, can they find data anomalies to assess what applications are impacted? Can they find the last known clean copy of data from which to recover the application? If they fail on both fronts, they may have to pay the ransom. Lastly, they need to recover critical applications in a timely manner to protect the business. If they can't get back online quickly, the cost of downtime may even exceed the cost of paying the ransom. These are all critical capabilities that many organizations wish they knew the answers to. Outside of the ever-present threat of ransomware, there are still other issues organizations are dealing with, namely managing workloads on the cloud. We all know how the saying goes, more cloud, more problems. And if you don't know, now you know. From an architecture standpoint, most, if not all, companies are doing something with the public cloud. And of those companies, about 75% of them are multi-cloud. And they look to consume a wide breadth of services across all three major providers. The problem is that it is extremely challenging when you're consuming a lot of these services to operationalize backup. The result is you end up with a plethora of point solutions and different management points to control data. Let's talk about what's top of mind for our customers today. For SaaS applications such as Microsoft 365, a small phishing email could translate to a vector of attack within days to weeks. What we're seeing in the market today is Microsoft 365 usage and data have exploded due to remote work becoming the new normal after COVID. And at the same time, ransomware has become the #1 cyber threat that companies are battling. As a result, Microsoft 365 has become a Tier 1 business critical application, and Microsoft 365 data has become invaluable. Yet, most clients are only leveraging the native Microsoft tools to secure their data, and bad actors are still getting through. So, we can all agree that Microsoft 365 data is extremely valuable and vulnerable to ransomware. We know this because per Microsoft, 74%, that's almost 3/4 of Microsoft workloads, are not protected at all. And you can bet some ransomware gangs have homed in on this. This is from leading cybersecurity firm Mandiant, highlighting how Microsoft 365 has become the new goldmine and top priority for cyber criminals, given the criticality of this data and limited data protection. And we hear these significant external threats on a weekly basis with issues like the SolarWinds hack or the really effective credential stealing malware via Microsoft Exchange. And most organizations have even experienced a Microsoft 365 account takeover. These threats persist even though Microsoft themselves tell customers that they need to be leveraging a third-party data protection solution as part of the shared responsibility model. And so this is where Rubrik sits in the stack. It is beneath the native tools, so when a bad actor gets in by breaching the identity, authentication, and security layers, Rubrik is there to provide a logically air-gapped, immutable copy of the backups, which are moved out of your tenant and into a Rubrik-hosted environment, so bad actors with global admin credentials can access or change the data. So your data is protected, and there are guaranteed, dependable SLAs around your recovery time. You now have that logical, secure air gap between your core data and your backup data protected by Rubrik. To give you confidence, resilience, and fast recoverability, we built Zero Trust Protection for Microsoft 365. So the key components are that air-gapped backup. Your Microsoft 365 data is physically isolated in a Rubrik tenant in Azure. We also have policy-driven protection. Rubrik automatically protects new users, sites, and resources. And multiple ways to recover quickly, in bulk or granular, even down to the file level. And I'm happy to announce the biggest set of enhancements to Rubrik from Microsoft 365 since its introduction. Microsoft 365 backups are now in Azure Immutable Storage. We've also really enhanced recoverability options with mass recovery, protections for Teams private channels, and SharePoint sites now have multiple recovery options depending on content. You can even export entire mailboxes to a .zip file. As for cloud workloads, what we're seeing is customers are deploying data in the cloud more and more. But as they do this, they're encountering essentially the same problems they've always had, the same ones we've been able to solve, just in new platforms, new terminology, and new technology. And this is how we're seeing it morph in the cloud. So whether it's AWS, Azure, or Google, if you're using the cloud native tools to back up, you basically set up and control these components here in red, such as retention, frequency, replication, and expiration at an individual account and subscription level. And most businesses are operating in dozens or hundreds of accounts if they're at a reasonable scale. So you'll actually have a situation where you start off with a couple of accounts, let's say AWS. Then all of a sudden, those 12 accounts are, in East region, West region, etc. for redundancy. So you end up with a sprawl that happens across multi-cloud where you have all of these accounts and management points, but no good way to fluidly gain visibility. Add into the mix, every cloud service has its own interface and architecture, so you end up having to learn and manage 15 different tool sets. And to top it all off, most businesses have their own on-prem environments to deal with, plus any SaaS solutions they leverage as well, both needing the same level of governance and security. All of this culminates in a lack of control and visibility because of the sporadic tools and fragmentation that occurs. As a result, businesses are left asking, do I have a good baseline backup across everything? Sure, some tools can aggregate some of this data, but when it comes to recovering and running reports, it's still a very manual process done on an individual basis. And that's where Rubrik comes in. We've built a solution that addresses, from a business standpoint, the following three aspects. The first is data resiliency at the point of data in the cloud, which we can translate to the concept of zero trust data management. With Rubrik, we remove data from identity boundaries. For instance, creating logical air gaps in the cloud by taking a snapshot from an AWS account and moving them to a different account altogether in the cloud, more specifically on a Rubrik hosted tenant within AWS, Azure, or GCP. So if and when you're hit with ransomware, the blast radius of the attack is much reduced and your backup copy is safe. The second aspect is unification. I mentioned earlier that most of our customers are multi-cloud. One of our core propositions is delivering a single command center for customers to govern data, control data, report on it, and really unify policies. So within Rubrik, we have a single protection policy, which we refer to as SLA policies that govern AWS, EC2 instances, Azure VMs, M365 users, on-prem workloads, like an all-in-one tool that is immensely powerful in drastically simplifying and automating backup and protection workflows. Lastly is the concept of control and visibility. Rubrik has invented a policy-driven intelligence engine, or SLA domain, as we call it, where you can set your recovery point objective, requirement, retention period, archive targets, and replication targets for near zero RTO requirements, and bucket an unlimited number of resources in it. And you can do this at the tenant or subscription level in the cloud, so as resources are being provisioned, you have the peace of mind to know that you're being protected. This minimizes the monetary impact of data loss in an accidental deletion situation, retention issues, or even ransomware. Here at Rubrik, we have an ever-expanding ecosystem of protection. Whether you're using AWS, Azure, GCP, or a combination of anything you see here on the screen, Rubrik has you covered. So, how do we accomplish all this? Rubrik can accomplish all of this with Rubrik Security Cloud, better known as RSC. RSC is a hyper-converged, software-defined data management platform that offers cloud scale with no limits, with instant data search and instant data access. With RSC, you hold the power of data resilience with unified management of data resilience across on-prem, cloud, and SaaS workloads, removing multiple point solutions and complexity with a truly unique solution. You also have data observability, enabling global command and control of required capabilities for cyber resilience with the ability to leverage ransomware investigation, data discovery, and threat hunting and orchestrated app recovery. Finally, data recovery. Automate global protection, reporting, alerting, upgrades, and recover anything from anywhere, whether it be the cloud environment, on-prem, or a hybrid solution. You also leverage global SLAs for compliance, as well as the ability to easily find and recover any data in your environment, and even a local UI for offline recovery. Here's some of our largest cloud customers. Let me know if you recognize any of them. These industry giants have entrusted Rubrik with making sure their data is protected and manageable over the cloud. As of today, we have over 6,200 customers worldwide. Here's some notable organizations and companies who have entrusted their data with Rubrik across multiple industries. Rubrik focuses tirelessly on customer satisfaction, customer success, and customer experiences. This is reflected in our NPS, customer satisfaction, and Gartner Peer Insight scores. One of the reasons our clients adore us is because of our valiant ransomware response team. They are available around the clock to make sure our clients successfully recover from a cyber attack. They have performed countless ransomware recoveries, so you can rest assured you're receiving help from seasoned professionals who pride themselves on providing consistent, confidential, custom, and speedy recoveries. They stay until you no longer need them and make sure that the job gets done and that you're back up and running. Rubrik has even been recognized by the likes of Gartner, scoring us the highest in vision, Forrester scoring us the strongest in overall strategy, and even Forbes crowning us into the Cloud 100 Club 5 years running. But don't just take Gartner, Forrester, Forbes, and my word for it. Consider Allstate. The insurance industry is seeing a major shift in consumers' desire to secure experiences like Airbnb stay or an Uber ride rather than traditional assets such as homes and cars. So in order to meet the consumer's growing demands, Allstate is aggressively acquiring new businesses left and right to deliver products to market faster. With Rubrik, Allstate is able to integrate new acquisitions quickly by centralizing and consolidating all data in one place. By replacing 6 exposed legacy backup systems, the insurance giant reclaimed 85% of old data center space and increased team productivity to make agile, intelligent business decisions in the cloud. So, thank you for joining me on this journey on how Rubrik can help protect your cloud and hybrid environments. I have been Valentin Cantu, Solutions Engineer for Rubrik, and remember, don't back up, go forward with Rubrik.
Okay, thank you for that excellent presentation, Valentin. And following up on that, we have a poll question for you. Let us know what additional resources you'd like to see from Rubrik. I'd also like to remind you about the handouts. We've got a great PDF from Rubrik. Make sure to check it out if you'd like more detail and get more from them. They're happy to follow up ASAP with you. I want to thank everybody who's responding to the poll as well. We do appreciate that. And I'll leave it up here for another moment before we move on to our next order of business. In this case, that order of business is the first prize drawing of the day. Going to have Amazon gift cards and iPad Airs today. This first prize is a $300 Amazon gift card. And the winner of that Amazon gift card is Parisa Esfahana from Texas. Congratulations to you, Parisa. We'll be in touch with you very soon about claiming your prize. And so up next, we want some more of your feedback. We are currently in the process of making our webinar schedule of events for 2024. We want to make sure we are covering the topics you want to hear about. Okay, so this is really crucial to let us know, what do you think we should be covering? Tell us in the questions tab there. Let us know the hot topics, the things you would need to know more about in 2024. And we will take that into account and use that to help build our schedule to fit what you are looking for. So you can let us know about this all the way through the event, not just while this slide is up. Let us know, think about it. If you think of something 5, 10, 20 minutes from now, let us know in the comments. Please do that, and we would really appreciate it. All right. And with that, it is time for our next presentation. This one comes from Hewlett Packard Enterprise. And joining us today are Kylie Fitzgerald, Senior Product Marketing Manager, Cloud Data Management and Protection, and Ashwin Shetty, Product Marketing Manager, both with HPE. Thank you for both being here. Kylie, you are up first today, so you have the mic. Take it away.
Hey, thank you so much for having us today. Excited to be joining this MegaCast. My name is Kylie Fitzgerald. I am Senior Product Marketing Manager at Zerto, a Hewlett Packard Enterprise company. I'm joined today by Ashwin Shetty, Product Marketing Manager at HPE. And today we're going to talk to you about the differences between backup and disaster recovery, why you need both and why they're indispensable, and why you should choose HPE GreenLake Data Protection Services. Before we dive into that, let's talk about some of the top challenges that we're seeing for data protection and hearing from our customers. We all know that data is growing at an exponential rate and that it's serving as one of the most valuable assets to any business today. With global estimations for data protection industry, we're looking at $170 billion by 2030. Also, companies are expanding from edge to cloud, especially with the remote workforce, thus creating this vulnerable sprawl that needs more safeguarding more than ever. And as cyber attacks like malware or worse, ransomware are happening more often, they're also getting more data targeted. And this is all causing workload types, variations, and dependencies to skyrocket. So when we zoom in a little closer at these data protection challenges, we see a reason to define and distinct two design centers. First, we have disaster recovery. You see this as for your most mission critical digital assets or applications, your tier 1 to tier 2, what you need to keep your front end business running for your customers or users. That means in today's high demand world, you'll need RPOs as low as a few seconds and RTOs as low as a few minutes. And you require a quick recovery in the event of a ransomware attack or any other unplanned disruption. So overall, you want to ensure that it's optimized for performance. Now, backup on the other hand, we're looking at more of your business critical digital assets and protecting all of your applications, tier 1 through tier 4. It's all the data you need in order to keep your business operational and compliant, sometimes over years, dependent on your industry. That means that you're going to get RPOs and RTOs that average a little longer than those RTOs and RPOs for disaster recovery. And that means that you'll want to make it your last resort in a downtime event. So with all that in mind, you're going to want to make sure that your backup solution is optimized for cost, because storing and restoring your years of data can be very, very expensive. But we do see a reason to bring these two together. And that's exactly what HPE has done with our data protection services and creating a seamless experience. What we have done is bring these services into the Data Services Cloud Console, allowing you to modernize your business with a cloud operational experience. You're going to have a seamless experience from one application to the next, from compute and networking to backup and disaster recovery. From here, you can manage, store, and protect all your data in one place, and specifically in one unified console, and seamlessly enjoy a user experience from the one app to the next. You'll see as time goes on that we'll continue to integrate this platform, and you'll be able to implement global protection policies across all your specified data at one time. Now, let's talk a little bit closer about HPE GreenLake for backup and recovery. Ashwin?
Thank you, Kylie. Just to set the context, today's backup and recovery offering are a fragmented mix of point solutions for backup, target storage, and long-term retention. Now, this makes it complex because each of these point solutions are designed on proprietary hardware or software and has its own maintenance and support contract. In many cases, we have found that customers are able to perform their backup jobs only once, and with such jobs, sometimes bleeding into the production window, it results in performance degradation. And should recovery be necessary, it can take multiple hours, which is inefficient and can have a serious impact on the revenue. HP GreenLake for backup and recovery is backup as a service delivered through HP GreenLake Cloud Platform and is a part of Data Services Cloud Console applications. It's designed for hybrid cloud protection, providing efficient and automated data protection for on premises and cloud native workloads. HP GreenLake for backup and recovery is highly storage efficient and uses the proven HP Store One's Catalyst data deduplication and data compression to significantly reduce the storage space required for backup data. This service enables users to consistently protect their on premises or cloud native workloads with global protection policy, eliminating data silos, multiple administrative touchpoints, and point solutions delivered on a secure platform with built in security features from ransomware and other threats. You can protect your on premises VMware VMs, Microsoft SQL Server instances, and cloud native workloads like Amazon EBS volumes, EC2 instances, and RDS in a simple, efficient, and secure approach. With HP GreenLake for backup and recovery, there's no hardware or software to size, configure, or manage, or even buy. One single service seamlessly protects your on prem and cloud native workloads. There are no scripts or codes to develop. Just with a few clicks, you can start protecting your workloads in minutes. A single cloud console manages all the backup and recovery operations. This is extremely easy to use. The cloud console has a dashboard that provides a quick view of protection status and the need to take actions to ensure protection. As the volume of data continues to grow, protecting that data at scale will only become more challenging. Data protection across hybrid cloud involves protecting large collections of data. Most of the time, these large collections of data need a similar protection SLA. It's a tedious job for an admin to apply protection and monitor jobs for these workloads individually. Backup and recovery makes it easy to protect at scale by organizing the virtual machines into protection groups. These protection groups enable user to apply protection for multiple VMs or data stored in a single operation to automate the protection at scale. This service is easy to deploy. It gets timely upgrades without causing any disruption or downtime, and the cloud native service eliminates complexity, freeing you from day-to-day hassles of backup infrastructure. The service incorporates the proven HP Stone's Catalyst technology, which provides space-efficient backups, enabling HP GreenLake for backup and recovery to deliver better storage efficiency compared to alternate backup solutions, up to 8 times better storage efficiency, or the need to use as less as 15% of the capacity other protection solutions require. Storage efficiency benefits include less storage to purchase and manage backup data, reduced network bandwidth cost, faster finish time for backups, ability for users to retain more with predictable cost, and cloud scale. GreenLake for backup and recovery further improves the reliability of backup data with inbuilt security features. As standard, all backup data written on the on-premises protection store and cloud protection store is encrypted using AES 256 algorithm. All backup data in flight is encrypted using SSL encryption. Backup data immutability can be configured for each backup type in a protection policy. A protection policy can define immutable and non-immutable backup protection schedules. The immutable period is defined by the backup retention period. During this time, a backup cannot be deleted or modified. Once the retention period has been set, it can't be reduced. The immutability period can only be increased by increasing the retention period. Optional dual authorization for backup deletion can be configured to require a second user to approve the deletion of any snapshot or backup recovery point. This feature adds an extra layer of protection against any rogue user trying to delete a backup or a snapshot by requiring the deletion request to be approved by a second and different user with the admin role before the request is carried out. And then you can also store your backup copies away from your production environment in an air gap approach to keep it safe from cyber attacks. Now, this shows two data protection paths for the service and how the service works. Now, let's look at the on-prem section in the diagram. This shows there are two data protection paths for on-prem protection. The first one is the integrated backup, which includes integrated snapshot, local backup, and cloud backup protection policy. For virtual machines and data stores that are using HP DSCC managed storage. For any other storage that is non-DSCC managed storage, the virtual machines and data stores is protected using the VMware CPT backup technology. Now let's look at the cloud native protection. This service makes it easy to protect your assets in the cloud. Amazon EC2 instances and EBS volumes can be easily configured for protection. AWS tags can be used to configure automatic protection groups for efficient protection in a dynamic environment. Tags can be edited, created, and deleted from registered AWS accounts and synced to AWS. Users can also import existing AWS snapshots into backup and recovery. This enables users to manage all backups from a single console, providing a single view of all recovery points and makes it easier to execute tasks such as removing orphaned backups. Now let's look at how this service tiers your data. For on-premises backups, there are 3 tiers of protection that are built in with HP GreenLake for backup and recovery: snapshots, on-premises backups, and cloud backups. For recovery in seconds, for HP GreenLake managed storage system, the service can execute snapshots within the storage system. This enables snapshot-based recovery points at a frequency as low as in 15 minutes. For recovery points that need to be retained for a longer time than snapshots, on-premises backup can be configured to provide recovery points with a retention up to 3 years. Cloud backups can be configured to HP GreenLake for backup and recovery to provide offsite recovery points. For additional protection, on-premises recovery points can be replicated to another on-premises location or a cloud location. For cloud native AWS backups, two tiers of protection are built in to the service: native AWS snapshots and cloud backups. For recovery in seconds or minutes, the service has the option to use local AWS backup. For long-term backup data retention, backups to HP GreenLake for backup and recovery cloud protection store can be configured with a retention of up to 7 years. Let's now look at a quick demo of how the service works before I turn it back to Kylie.
HPE GreenLake for Backup and Recovery is a policy-based hybrid cloud data protection solution provided as a service that helps you easily and securely protect your virtualized workloads and applications, both on-premises and in the cloud. Our simple and intuitive dashboard gives you complete control over your data protection, policies, and activities, whether it's virtualized VMware infrastructure on-prem or AWS resources in the cloud. You can create global protection policies that apply to all your workloads, or you can create custom policies for specific applications or datasets. And new for the service, HPE GreenLake for Backup and Recovery now also offers deeper database integration, so you can protect your SQL Server databases on premises and any of 7 popular database engines available in the cloud via the AWS Relational Database Service. And when you need to recover your data, it's easy to do from the same central console. Simply choose the database to recover and click Restore to launch a recovery wizard that will let you restore in place or to a new instance using the recovery point of your choice. HPE GreenLake for Backup and Recovery. It's your one-stop shop for data protection, both on-premises and in the cloud.
Thank you so much, Ashwin. Appreciate that insight on HP GreenLake for Backup and Recovery. Now let's talk about HP GreenLake for Disaster Recovery. HP GreenLake for Disaster Recovery helps you to radically reduce data loss and downtime by using Zerto technology, the continuous data protection that you all may be familiar with already. But now it's available as a full software as a service on the global management platform, HPE GreenLake. You're going to get RTOs and RPOs that are super low, giving you that fast, flexible recovery from any disruption. You're going to have a unified, seamless experience from edge to cloud if you're managing not only your DR or backup, but as well as your compute, networking, and storage from the data services cloud console. And with this solution, you're going to get that built-in orchestration and automation and be able to scale as your business needs to grow or innovate its technology. So let's go through a few key differences. First, I mentioned the continuous data protection, which is made up of 3 key components. I'll take you through that first. Next, we're going to talk about the built-in orchestration and automation and the non-disruptive testing that makes this product very valuable to you and your business. We're going to talk about how we're serving the hybrid cloud, especially via HPE GreenLake, and how simple and easy it is to use and continue to change your infrastructure as you need. So first component as it comes to continuous data protection is our near synchronous replication. So you're getting the best of both synchronous and asynchronous approaches, making it more cost effective. Plus, it's good for your RPOs to get those RPOs or recovery point objectives of just a few seconds. HPE GreenLake makes this for disaster recovery, makes this possible with Zerto's block level replication. Because we sit at that hypervisor level, we can be a fully software only solution, totally independent of underlying hardware and infrastructure, including your storage. So no matter what hardware or storage you're using, you can use this DR solution to protect your most mission critical assets. The second key component when it comes to the continuous data protection is the unique journaling technology. What you're going to get is this unmatched granularity. If your site, for example, what we're showing here, is hit by a ransomware attack around 10 p.m. at night, nobody's around, right? Well, if you only have a backup solution in place, you're going to see on the left-hand side that you would have to back up possibly to 24 hours prior. If you're only using snapshots, you might have to back up to 4 hours prior. That's a lot of data loss. Now, if you have disaster recovery in your system and able to work and operate with your other backup solutions like HPE GreenLake for backup and recovery, you will have minimal data loss and downtime. You'll be able to recover and rewind back to 5 seconds before the disruption happened at 9:59 and 55 seconds with a 5-second data loss and only a few minutes to get back up online, allowing you to neutralize whatever downtime that you're experiencing, whether it be ransomware or malware, allowing you to not have to pay that fee and get your data back in a quick and fast way. The third key component when it comes to HPE GreenLake for disaster recovery and the continuous data protection is that application-centric protection. Instead of restoring applications at different points in time, we do it in one fell swoop. You can recover multiple VMs as one cohesive logical entity. And when you're creating recovery points, all the VMs will share the exact same checkpoint with right order fidelity across them. When the application is recovered, every VM that makes it whole spins up from that same cross-VM recovery point in the boot order of your choice without any extra work on your end. That's really the beauty of it. It's going to save you a ton of resources when you're trying to reduce the amount of time dedicated to recovery. All right, now let's talk about the second key difference when it comes to HPE GreenLake for disaster recovery. You're going to have built-in orchestration and automation for your disaster recovery, making it a really easy experience. In 3 simple steps, you're going to be able to set up your virtual protection groups, select the groups of VMs that you want to put into those virtual protection groups, and begin testing failovers. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. And with that, you're going to be able to run tests to test your DR strategy at any point in time. It doesn't matter if it's in the middle of the day on a Monday, because this is a non-disruptive test. This is non-disruptive testing. There's zero impact to your production environment. This is going to allow you to test more often and more comprehensively, allowing your team to get back to focusing on higher strategic priorities and make sure that you are getting those RTOs and RPOs of just that are super low, and make sure that you will be able to recover quickly in the event of a disaster. The third key difference for HPE GreenLake and how it brings the cloud to you is HPE GreenLake itself. Let HPE handle the maintenance and upkeep of its own hybrid cloud platform, and you all can reap the benefits of its security, its scalability, and the cost effectiveness. Plus, HPE GreenLake is a one-stop shop, as I've mentioned, for all your cloud offerings. So you can manage everything from one place and reduce that complexity of various disparate tools that you're probably facing today. The fourth key difference when it comes to HPE GreenLake for disaster recovery is that you're going to get an easy deployment starting from the Data Services Cloud Console. You also have flexible architecture. So because we sit at that hypervisor level and we're doing that near synchronous replication at that level, you're going to be able to change your infrastructure as you need for business requirements, to continue to innovate and build out your tech stack while staying protected and doing so seamlessly and hands off. This would allow you to also make sure that you're meeting compliancy standards, and you'll be able to see that right in your dashboard, that you're meeting stringent SLAs, that you're getting RPOs of just seconds and RTOs of just a few minutes. And then you'll also have the ready-made reports to be able to hand off to your boss in the event that he wants to do a check-in. So what you're getting here is complete data protection, bringing back HPE GreenLake for backup and recovery and HPE GreenLake for disaster recovery together. You get that data protection services unified portfolio. From one side, you're getting, from the disaster recovery side, you're going to get RPOs of just 5 to 15 seconds, really helping you to stay online in the event of a disaster. And then at the same time, you'll be able to stay compliant and meet long-term retention requirements when it comes to having your backup solution in place with HPE GreenLake for backup and recovery. And with all that in between, you're meeting that operational recovery need by having both in place and protecting from mission critical all the way through business critical, tier 1 through tier 4, all your applications and data to give you the right workload for the right SLAs with that full protection. So why HPE GreenLake for disaster recovery or backup recovery? Ultimately, our data protection services. You're going to get the fastest recovery in the event of a ransomware attack with end-to-end encryptions and granular restores from any cyber attack. You'll be able to recover from any disruption, whether it's ransomware or the common human error. You'll be able to get RPOs that will help you meet your business requirements and give you that flexibility of instant restores and long-term retention in the cloud. And at the end of the day, this is all super simple, making it effortless on your end, keeping that policy-driven automation and unified management, edge to cloud, all delivered as a service. So how can you get started with HPE GreenLake data protection services? Well, first you can go ahead and visit that first link you see on the left-hand side to learn more about data protection. That'll stem you out to our 2 solutions on hpe.com. Next, you could just scan this QR code and we're happy to take you through a free personalized demo, give you any resources or answer any questions you may have. And we can get you started with a free 90-day trial for either backup and recovery or disaster recovery. Just scan that QR code or follow that bit.ly/Zerto_HPE, and one of the members of our team will reach out to you to get you guys started on that. And if you haven't started in HPE GreenLake yet, it's completely free. Test drive it yourself, sign up today, and check out some of the other services if you became interested in those. And if you have any questions or want to test this in a sandbox environment or use a user guide, HPE GreenLake for Disaster Recovery offers that. So email us at gldr-product@hp.com and we can get you in. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all's time.
And we appreciate your time today, Kylie. Thank you so much for that presentation. You and Ashwin did a great job letting us know what's going on with GreenLake today. I love how that is constantly upgrading and improving. So our poll question is up now. We want to know what additional resources you'd like to see from HPE. You saw on the previous slide all those different ways to get hold of them. Reminder also that in the handout section, there's a PDF from HPE. Make sure you check that out as well for more details. Thanks to everybody who's responding to the poll. That feedback is really important to us and to our sponsors. I'll leave it up here for another moment, and then we will get going on our next presentation. But first, we have a prize drawing. And this time we've got a $300 Amazon gift card, and we've got a grand prize for the day, that iPad Air, the first of many that are coming up. The iPad Air is a great machine, by the way. I have one, bought it a couple months ago, and I love it. I use it all the time. So the winner of the $300 Amazon gift card is Andrew Sparks from Missouri. And the winner of the first iPad Air is Raja Mutu from Arizona. Congratulations to both of our winners. We'll be in touch with you about claiming those prizes. Excellent. So, are you ready for another presentation? On deck now, we have got Kasten by Veeam, and presenting for Kasten is Matt Slotton, the Principal Solutions Architect. And for this one, I will be joining Matt for some Q&A at the end, so keep those questions coming in. Matt, you have got the mic.
Awesome. Thank you, Keith, for having me here today. Super excited to be here and to present to everybody about understanding your cloud-native data protection and disaster recovery options. Obviously, you're going to be focusing on Kasten by Veeam. My name is Matt Slotton. I'm a Principal Solution Architect here at Kasten. My focus is primarily on partners and our partner ecosystem. But that being said, obviously across all things in Kasten K10 and the product. So we're going to dive in a little bit today and just take a look at, what does it mean to have a cloud native backup solution, data protection solution? What are our options? What might we need to consider when we're trying to back up these workloads, and maybe how it's different than, maybe traditional backup. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the presentation. And then towards the end, we'll definitely do a quick demo. And then obviously want to leave some time for Q&A there. So with that, let's dive in. All right, so enterprise Kubernetes data protection challenges. Obviously, Kubernetes, hopefully everybody on this call is familiar with Kubernetes, but if you are not, high level, it is the hot new thing since 2016, as I like to say. It's a container orchestration platform, right? So allowing us to use containerized workloads, deploy them in highly available manners. Obviously, it gives us the full ability to integrate into our CI/CD pipelines. But it is fundamentally different than a lot of traditional infrastructure or traditional information technologies or data centers in that we are looking at things through a different lens, right? So as a result, some high-level stats just to kind of lay the land. We see that 74% of organizations think that traditional container-based applications can be backed up the same way as traditional infrastructure. That is not the case, unfortunately. I wish it was. It would make things a lot easier, right? So if we could use our traditional backup tools, obviously Kasten is a Veeam company. If we could use Veeam VBR to back up Kubernetes, that would be awesome. Veeam would be happy about it. It'd be a lot less engineering work. But unfortunately, that's just not the case, right? So we're looking at a different architecture. Maybe even if you're running Kubernetes on VMs, you can try to back up those VMs, but there's no telling that when you restore those backed up VMs, that your Kubernetes applications are going to come back in the same state or same way that they were, prior to backup. Which obviously your ability to your backups are only as good as your ability to restore. So really important there. So just keep that in mind as we kind of go through this and talk about cloud native backup and why it's maybe a little bit different. We'll dive a little bit later too on how we're different with Kubernetes as well. But moving right along, moving to the right here, 85% of companies have experienced at least one ransomware attack in the past year. This number is increasing. Actually, this one's I think slightly out of date, even though this is from 2023 report. We are seeing an exponential increase in ransomware attacks, which is not easy to manage, right? And we're seeing a lot more in the news and the headlines. As consumers, I know here in the States, a couple years ago, there was that big gas pipeline was subject to a ransomware attack. I'm a car guy, so I actually had to get fuel. I was heading to a track day and I could not get fuel because of that pipeline being shut down and compromised. And obviously, fortunately, that company was able to restore, and they were able to obviously get back online in relatively short fashion. But obviously, the ramifications were real, right? So that's just one example. Obviously, that one's at this point outdated. Again, if you go in the news almost every other week, you'll see some headlines around that. So definitely seen a lot more of that. So we need to keep that in mind when we're looking at all of our workloads, right? Whether those traditional infrastructure, your data center, or in this case, Kubernetes or cloud native workloads. We see that 93% of organizations think that multi-cloud support for container backup is important. And this makes sense, right? So, obviously we live in a hybrid world. Ideally, we are able to leverage different capabilities, different data centers, public, private, cloud, and put our workloads where we want them. So we want to make sure we avoid vendor lock-in if possible, right? So we need to make sure that we can support multiple clouds, whether again, on-prem, multiple public cloud providers, and have that flexibility, right? So it's something to keep in mind there too when we're looking at these backup and data protection solutions. And last but not least, 75% of organizations indicate a skill shortage in Kubernetes backup and recovery teams. And again, this makes sense, right? So Kubernetes, yes, it's been around since 2016, but things take time, especially things that have a fundamentally different architecture. So we see a lot of traditional infrastructure or backup admins kind of have to add Kubernetes into their kind of repository or their repertoire to back those up. And as a result, that obviously takes away from kind of traditional backup or traditional storage solutions, and it's a whole new fundamental technology that we have to learn. So definitely something that we are very much aware of here at Kasten, and we think our product hopefully helps alleviate this issue because we're always competing for time and resources. We need to make sure that we can empower and enable our backup administrators or our platform engineers with quick, easy to use solutions. So moving right along, why do we need backup for Kubernetes, right? So, isn't Kubernetes stateless? There's no data in Kubernetes, right? It's all in my database or whatnot. Maybe that was the case in 2016. That is not the case in 2023, right? We are seeing another exponential increase just in the amount of persistent data workloads being deployed inside Kubernetes. Being deployed next to these containerized workloads. And it makes sense, right? From a development perspective, it's very easy for developers to quickly spin up a MongoDB container or a MySQL container next to their core application, right? And also from a performance perspective as well, we're not having, for that workload mobility, if we can move our application and our data together and leverage the capabilities of containerization, we don't have to worry about latency or having to go, across shores or undersea cables just to do a transaction or query. But as a result, we need to make sure we are protecting that persistent data, right? So just a couple of workloads, or a number of workloads we're seeing here. Most common one being Nginx, obviously proxies and web servers, but things like Redis and Postgres databases, Elasticsearch, Kafka, a lot of these are very advanced workloads. We're seeing more and more adoption within cloud native, and again, not just the application, but their data as well. So Kubernetes production demands more than just backup, right? So we kind of alluded to that earlier. Really important that, our ability to backup is only as good as our ability to restore. So that's we want to focus really on data recovery, right? So just saying, hey, I'm taking snapshots or I'm taking backups, that's not enough, right? We need to make sure that we not only are taking those backups, but that we can restore those backups. Because again, if we can't, then there's no point in taking the backup. But really important there for disaster recovery as well, right? So in this hybrid cloud world, the advantage is maybe we have an on-prem and then we've got a small footprint in the public cloud, but if something happens on-prem, we have a major outage, power, what have you, the 1,000-year flood, we can easily spin up those workloads in the public cloud, but we need to make sure that we have the capability of that for in a disaster scenario with our backups and replication. Obviously, security is becoming ever more important. We need to make sure that we have our end-to-end encryption, access control, ability to audit, and most importantly, ransomware protection, right? We saw that number 85% and increasing. We need to make sure that we can protect our data, that we can recognize quickly that we are potentially subject to ransomware and go back to the last known good. So very important there. And then, of course, data freedom, right? So going back to the kind of that cloud agnostic model on-prem, in public cloud, multiple public cloud providers, we want to make sure that we're not locked into one specific cloud provider or one specific backup technology that only works with one storage, whether it's, you choose your favorite storage. You want to make sure that, if you do one day decide to switch to a different storage vendor or have multiple storage vendors in your data center or multiple public clouds, that you can back up and restore to those as well. So what is Kasten? How do we fit into this picture? So obviously we all knew this slide was coming because I work for Gaston, but to go quickly through this, most importantly, or one thing that we're very proud of is we are Kubernetes native, right? So we are backing up Kubernetes workloads and we are deployed within Kubernetes. And this is really important, right? So this means that we are able to actually see the workloads that we are deployed next to. So from a performance perspective, from a audit perspective, to see those namespaces, we can quickly and easily identify new namespaces as they're deployed. We're not just a bolt-on, right? We're also able to leverage the benefit of Kubernetes, right? So by spinning up, if you kick off a backup job, we spin up the containers we need to perform the backup. And then when we're done, we spin them down. That saves on cloud resources. And then lastly, of course, we have the ability to, everything we do within the user interface, we can basically do in YAML, right? So we can do that in an automated fashion. So, everything you configure within the Kasten K10 UI, we can export that YAML and put that into a pipeline around something like Argo CD or some sort of policy management, and actually build that directly into our pipeline. So as our developers are rolling out new code, we can not only, in our pipeline deploy that new code, but also automatically implement backup policies to ensure that data is backed up. So really important there. And also we embrace being Kubernetes native in terms of our own disaster recovery, right? So we don't worry about backing up, our Kasten instance. In fact, our DR approach is if you lose a data center, we actually tell you to use the Helm command, deploy a new K10 instance in the data center that you're trying to restore to, and we essentially point to our offsite replicated data and reseat that, right? So again, kind of embracing the true beauty of Kubernetes as well as a true kind of stateless disaster recovery and pulling our configuration as needed rather than having to, move a VM or something like that. Obviously, in light of ransomware, security everywhere, right? So out of the box, we have end-to-end encryption. So when you send anything up to the public cloud for your offsite backups, it is automatically enabled. You cannot disable it. So really important there, from talking about ransomware or you maybe a malicious third party in your environment. You cannot turn off encryption, right? So very important that we have that built in. We also are implementing a number of security monitoring and integration capabilities with things like Red Hat ACS, things like Argo CD, and then Kyverno, all of those third-party solutions. Because we're Kubernetes native, we can easily integrate with those again, because we are agnostic and have that native YAML that we can tie into pipelines or tie into automation. But going down, getting ahead of myself with that YAML, ease of use, right? Really important there. Go back to that other stat about organizations being underskilled or understaffed from a Kubernetes backup resourcing perspective. We want to make sure that we make this really easy, right? We don't want to have our backup administrators or our platform engineers spending their days, tweaking, scripting, trying to get their backups to work, because we need them focused on keeping the lights on, right? So keeping it really easy, making things intuitive, ability to quickly and easily trigger backup jobs and policy-based backups. We do that all within the Kasten K10 interface. And of course, full ecosystem support. Essentially, we said any cloud, any Kubernetes, any app, we are agnostic, right? So as long as it's a CNCF, certified version of Kubernetes, we will run on it. We can back it up. Same thing with things like speccing storage. So CSI driver, the CSI standard. If there's a certified CSI driver that can do volume snapshot support, then we can use that to back up workloads on that storage. So again, no vendor lock-in. We give you that not only that data protection, but also that mobility capability as well, right? To be able to move applications amidst different public cloud or private cloud or hybrid cloud providers. So what is Kubernetes native backup, right? How is this kind of different, for my traditional backup administrators or people that are familiar with backing up physical or virtual infrastructure? So as mentioned before, Kubernetes is fundamentally different. At the end of the day, we do have underlying disk. You'll see at the bottom there, we've got our block and file storage. Maybe that's presented via something like a CSI driver or Ceph, or, if it's a public cloud provider, we do, more of a, before CSI, we had some kind of what we call in-tree storage. But long story short, we have physical disk, but we need to be able to talk to that disk, but via the Kubernetes mechanism, right? So via our persistent volume PVCs and volume snapshots. So we can do that directly via Kubernetes. As I mentioned before, we are deployed within Kubernetes. You see Kasten K10 here on the right next to our workloads there. So you'll see we've got 2 cloud native apps here, just generic apps. Then we've got our KubeVirt VM. So important thing to note there, because the world has come full circle. So now we can deploy virtual machines directly within Kubernetes. That's, again, kind of going full circle there. We went physical to virtual. Now we've got Kubernetes, and now we put virtual on Kubernetes. But anyway, so we can back up those workloads as well. And we're able to leverage things like blueprints, where we can actually provide more advanced and application-aware backups, right? So if you're running something like Postgres or MySQL or data workloads that require some sort of quiescing of the disk, we can leverage things called blueprints within Kasten K10 and use application fingerprinting to apply those blueprints, so we can actually take those intelligent backups and make sure that those backups can be easily restored in a state that we expect them to be in. And then lastly, our external storage target up top. We support any S3 compatible storage, obviously S3 itself, things like MinIO. Obviously want to make sure we have immutability. We support Azure Blob as well. So that's our offsite replication, right? So we talk about 3-2-1 in the backup world. You want 3 copies of data on 2 types of media and 1 offsite. That external storage target is our 1 offsite. Beyond S3 or Azure Blob, we also support NFS as well for your external storage target. So obviously, we want to make sure we can also extend and integrate and automate. I said, because we are Kubernetes native, we can get the YAML for all of these jobs. We can actually tie this into our pipelines and automate this in part of scripts or as pipeline automation as our developers are deploying their applications. So quick slide here, just like to tout this. We are the #1 in Kubernetes data protection, a 3-time leader for outperforming Kubernetes data protection per this GigaOM survey, and we continue to try to innovate. We innovate very quickly. We have 2-week release cycles. We release updates to our product every 2 weeks with at least one major minor version, 2 a year, essentially. So constantly innovating, adding features, adding third-party support, adding additional storage. We are constantly innovating, making sure that we can stay not aligned to, but even ahead of what we see going on in the industry. Security everywhere, again, really important here in light of ransomware and just kind of the world we live in. I miss the early days of the internet where it was all cat memes and instant messengers. Obviously there's a little bit more we need to worry about. So we need to make sure we have early threat detection. So integrating with things like Red Hat ACS or some sort of policy management, make sure we can alert on suspicious behavior as well. So we're starting to integrate with things like SIEMs, security incident and event management, to make sure we can raise what we see as anomalous behavior. That's easily integrated within Kasten K10. Keep an eye out for a release pretty soon, specifically in that space. Encrypted and immutable backups, as mentioned before, we have end-to-end encryption you can't turn off out of the box, using S3 object locked and soon to be added Azure Blob lock as well. This ensures that our data, once it's backed up and replicated, cannot be manipulated. So really important there. Also worth mentioning, and I'm remiss that I didn't mention this earlier, because we are a Veeam company, we support Veeam VBR as a target repository as well. And with Veeam VBR version 12, they support not only immutability, but indelibility with a hardened Linux repository. So really important there too, working with our parent company there, Veeam, and making sure that we integrate with those solutions for those existing Veeam customers. And lastly, accelerated recovery, just to make sure we can quickly restore and minimize business downtime, making sure we meet those SLAs we have with agreement with the business, RTO, RPO requirements. Because we use policy-based backup, you can essentially apply policies and make sure your replication schedules meet your business need based on business application criticality. So moving right along, you didn't want to get in the demo here because I'm conscious of time here. So just a couple last slides, then we'll dive in. So Kasten K10, as I mentioned, cater to organizational needs, right? So we understand that Kubernetes kind of, we're seeing Kubernetes backup span 2 spaces, right? You've got your traditional storage and backup administrators on the left here, your platform ops or platform engineers on the right side here. The tool itself, Kasten K10 can cater to either workload, right? We can talk backup, we can talk storage at admins. We have things, like we said, Veeam, VBR integration, obviously have our 3-2-1 principles in place, restore, all of those things developed from the product, but also from our platform ops side, you're saying obviously automated policy deployment, CI/CD integration, making sure that we can support multiple clouds and automated backup policies. So just know that we can support the multiple personas there and hopefully speak the language that you speak. All right, so this is a heavy slide. I'm not going to spend too much time. It actually is slightly out of date too. Need to add this, but we are constantly adding additional third-party partners and vendors here. Long story short here, all the major players we pretty much support from a Kubernetes perspective, from a data storage perspective. We're constantly adding additional security services. So again, keep an eye out on that, a blog post the next week or two, as well as advanced workloads right on the far left there, things like Amazon RDS, Postgres, we use Kafka, MySQL, all of those persistent data workloads we support in terms of backing up using our capabilities within Blueprints. So diving into that automated policy management. So really good blog post and video on this if you're interested, but this is how we can integrate with automated policy using something like Kyverno because K10 or Kasten is cloud native, and because we are a Kubernetes native, all of our CRDs are available for policy management, right? So this means that as part of our pipeline, we can ensure that as an application is deployed either in a new namespace or existing namespace, that there is a backup policy applied, and that backup policy is scheduled to be executed, right? So really important there, just from a compliance and governance perspective, ensuring that our workloads are backed up. Again, sometimes it's tough with a lot of developers, a lot of teams, a lot of initiatives going on. So if you're manually trying to keep track of everything being deployed, it can be quickly get out of sorts, especially if it's not your day job, right? If you're focused on helping, back up other solutions or, help platform engineering, help with other supporting infrastructure for other solutions, really important to have this automation in your CI/CD pipeline. So really good integration there. And of course, as mentioned before, blueprints, right? So really important for those persistent workloads, right? So if you've got something like a Postgres database, being able to quiesce that data prior to taking our backup or snapshot and replicating that, we want to make sure that our database is in a good state. So when we bring it back, that we can bring it back in a state that will actually work, right? The last thing you want to do is have to go restore something and then have to go dig through logs, or all of a sudden your recovery time objective just gets blown out, right? We're missing our SLAs. So using things like app blueprinting is we're able to actually apply the same policy based on either a tag or recognizing using things like regex to say, hey, this is a MongoDB database. Let's make sure we apply our advanced backup policy and capabilities to this application type. And the last slide before we dive into a quick demo here. So transform sets, freedom of choice, as mentioned before, support multiple clouds. Beautiful thing about transform sets is it's really nice for a disaster recovery and a hot warm scenario, right? So maybe you have an on-premises data center and you're using a public cloud provider as your DR site. We can use transform sets to essentially keep a warm system running in the public cloud, but at a scaled down version, right? So leverage the benefits of Kubernetes. Maybe have your pod set, your replicas lower for that public cloud to reduce your compute costs. But maybe you have one one pod up, and then in a disaster scenario, you can quickly via transforms built into Kasten K10 spin up those number of replicas to make sure that you have enough to accommodate those production workloads. So really useful there. Also really useful for moving cross cloud. If you have different storage providers, we can do that with transform sets as well. Beautiful thing about infrastructure as code is that it is code, so that we can change things on the fly as we're moving them to or from different providers. All right, with that, I'm going to dive into a quick demo. I just want to show you guys the interface real quick and just how easy it is to set up a backup job. So you see here, I have an OpenShift, Red Hat OpenShift cluster deployed. In this case, I have OpenShift deployed on AWS, but this could be bare metal, could be on premises, doesn't have to be OpenShift either. It could just be Kubernetes, but I like the nice friendly interface of Red Hat. So that's what I've used here for my cluster. You can see here, if I go to workloads, I've got quite a few pods deployed, but in terms of apps, we're going to focus on Pacman. Obviously, this is a business critical app. We all know that with Pacman, we need to make sure that we protect our high scores, right? So if I go here and see, I've got my high score blue time. Looks like 910. It's not a very high score, but nonetheless, it's okay. Let's get eaten a couple times. And then we'll put a new score in there real quick. All right, so Ghost got me. So we'll call this backup cloud native. So I'll save that. Not the best score, 280, but I'll take it. All right, so heading over, here's my Kasten K10 interface here. You can see, because I'm deployed within Kubernetes, I can see all the namespaces I'm adjacent to. I'm going to go ahead and search for Pacman, because let's see. You can see here, I can see the Pacman app is deployed to this namespace. I don't have any policies created yet, so I'm going to quickly create one. I'll call it Pacman Backup. We'll say just snapshot, and we'll do hourlies, because we want to make sure we're getting all of our scores in there, really important. And I want to say enable snapshots via exports. I do not have a profile configured, but if I had S3, this is where I could export offsite. Again, check out videos if you want to see how we can support those offsite backups. But for the purpose of this demo, we're just going to do a quick backup and restore locally. And then you can see here, I also have the ability to use things called canister actions, which those are the blueprints, right? So we are using a MongoDB. I could use a blueprint to protect those scores, but in this case, we don't have a ton of transactions, so it should be fine. So I'll see create policy. I'll go ahead and say run once and let that go. And we can go back to our dashboard and actually see that job run. So what that's going to do is just trigger a local backup, and I'll go ahead and kick off and let us back up our Pacman workload. So conscious of time here, guys. Let's see. Make sure We run through our backup. That's good. Hopefully I applied the annotation to perform the backups in my storage as I think about this. I may have not. All right. Looks like I did. I say that. Yeah, maybe not. All right. Well, with that, definitely want to be conscious of time here. So let me swap over. We'll bring Pac-Man back up. But Keith, I know we've got a couple questions in there. So while that's performing a backup in the back end, if you can throw some questions my way, I'd love to run through those and hopefully help get those answered.
Absolutely. So the demo and all that took a lot of our time. I did want to say one important thing. So why Pac-Man and not Galaga? Right, I was more of a Galaga guy back in the day. So
it's because I'm awful. That's why.
All right, so I think we got time for just maybe one question and then maybe a call to action from you. So here's a question, and more will be coming in, and I'm sure that Caston will be following up with all the questions that are coming in as well during this presentation. So here's a really good one. Why can't I just back up and restore etcd for Kubernetes for my workloads?
Great question. We hear this a lot in the field. So yeah, this definitely, on the surface, it would make sense, right? It's like etcd is the brain of Kubernetes. Why can't I just back up the brain and then restore the brain? And the best allegory I have for this for my virtualization administrators out there, and I come from a virtualization background, infrastructure background, is this would be kind of like the same thing as saying, hey, I back up my vCenter, therefore I back up my Kubernetes, therefore I back up my VMs, sorry. Keep with my allegory there, which, as we know, that's not the case, right? Just because vCenter has a database of your running VMs, you don't know the state those VMs are in. You need to actually back up the VMs, those workloads, and the applications within them. So common question we get. And there are ways, I don't want to say that you can't, there are ways to restore from etcd, but in terms of meeting those SLAs, RTO, RPO requirements, it can quickly get in the mud in terms of trying to get back to that state that you were in, when you're taking snaps of etcd. Kubernetes it has your desired state and your actual state. So you don't know that your actual state's going to meet your desired state if you just back up etcd. So that's a good question. That's why we need those workload specific backups.
All right, great. Now, again, there's more questions that are coming in. You will be getting back to everyone who asked one. What I do want to ask you now, finally, though, is if people want to take the next step with Caston by Veeam, what should they do? Where should they go next?
Awesome. I appreciate it. Yeah, definitely take a look. So we have 5 fully featured nodes for free. So you can grab a license for 5 nodes for free. Sorry, fully featured Caston K10 license. So check it out there. Free Kubernetes, Caston.io. Definitely reach out. Yeah, if you have any questions, I'm sure our team will be following up. And I appreciate everybody's time. And Keith, thank you for having me on today. I very much enjoyed it.
Oh, it was my pleasure, Matt. And I think I can speak for everyone when I say free is good. So we're looking forward to seeing more of what Caston by Veeam is doing in the future. Thanks so much for your presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, Keith. Appreciate it.
All right. That was a lot of fun and some great questions for Matt. And now we have got our poll question for you. We appreciate your feedback on what more information you would like to see from Caston by Veeam. And as always, remember the handouts. There's a great one in the handouts section from Caston. Lots of good information in that. Be sure to check that out for more detail. And thank you to everybody who's responding to this poll. We do appreciate that very much. I'll leave it up here for one more moment before we move on to our next presentation. But before we get to that presentation, we do have another prize giveaway today. We've got the combo. We're going to do the $300 Amazon gift card and the iPad Air, and the winners have been chosen for that. So the winner of the $300 Amazon gift card for this half hour is Jigar Mehta from California, and the iPad Air goes to Marina Demcheva from Massachusetts. Congratulations to you both. You'll be hearing from us soon about claiming your prizes. Okay, folks, that is it for me today. I am delighted to be handing this event over to the indelible and immutable David Davis, who will be driving the bus from here on out. David, it is great to see you today. Are you ready? Yep, still waiting to hear from David. David Davis, are you around today?
I am here. Can you hear me, Keith?
There you are. There you are. I got you now.
All right.
The indelible one indeed. So
thank you so much, Keith, for I'm just going to say great introduction because I don't have a thesaurus like you do for a brain. So I'm going to have to look up those words later, but really appreciate the great introduction. This has been an awesome MegaCast so far, and I'm excited to hear from 3 more expert presenters still on the MegaCast today. Of course, congratulations to all of our prize winners. I'm just going to go ahead and bring in now our next presenter on the MegaCast. Excited to hear from Caitlin Carollo, who's an enterprise sales engineer at Commvault. Caitlin, it's great to have you up next here on the MegaCast. Take it away.
My name is Caitlin Carollo, and I'm a sales engineer at Metallic with Commvault. Today, we're going to be talking about recovery readiness in the modern IT environment and how security plays a role in your backup and recovery efforts of your IT environment. Now, Metallic and Commvault has focused on protecting our customers' data for the last 26 years. Now, over that period of time, we've seen a lot of change in the landscape of IT environments. Now, we see, the changes that have been in place during these different waves of technology, whether we think back to traditional database environments and physical servers, how that transitioned through to things like virtual environments, then changes like things like Kubernetes and container orchestration, along with the development of hybrid cloud adoption and SaaS applications. So we're seeing that SaaS application adoption is starting to outpace traditional applications, along with that managing these older platforms or legacy technology is a challenge when we have very varied components within our environments. So when we have, all these different components in a given environment, as well as cutting edge technologies, older technologies that maybe fewer people know how to manage, we're also seeing that increase in risk. There's a larger attack surface, there's way more points of entry for attackers, and there's a lot more expertise required to manage these environments as the complexity increases. Now, this is where Commvault, being an industry leader in backup and recovery, we really take an industry standard approach to ransomware protection and ransomware recovery. So the ransomware recovery framework that we follow is that of the NIST cybersecurity framework, so the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Now, this framework is critical across all components of your environment. So if you're looking at protecting production data, all of these concepts do apply in terms of protecting those environments. But we also specifically apply this framework to our backups because we're also seeing that backup environments are becoming a big target for ransomware attacks. So we'll talk through this framework and how it applies to our environments as a whole, but especially to our data protection, so that you can be armed with information to understand how to ensure that even with backups in place, they are fully protected so that you're able to perform that recovery in the event of a cyber event. The first element of this framework is the identify phase. This is where you're going to get a lay of the land and see what risks might be out there in terms of the environment that you're analyzing. So in the case of our solutions with Metallic, which is a software as a service solution, we have what's called the Security IQ dashboard. And really what this is for is to provide you insights into what's actually happening within your environment and what areas could be exposed to risk. Now, when we look at Security IQ, we'll see things like the latest audit events, as well as that security posture score, which has recommendations, like I mentioned, for two-step authorization, encryption, auditing, and other components like that lockout duration that I've mentioned. Approach this phase with an open mind and try to think about all of the different ways that your environment could be at risk, with the understanding that this information is what's going to arm you with the ability to start protecting that environment. That leads us to the next phase, which would be the protect phase. This is really where you need to ensure that your data and your systems are protected from attacks. When we think about protecting backup data, usually we're thinking about immutable storage and air gap for those data copies so that they can't be modified or tampered with. But similarly too, we need to also isolate our backup service so that in the event that our production environment is affected, that backup service will still be separate, isolated, and able to perform recoveries without having been negatively impacted by something like ransomware. This involves having multiple controls in place, such as zero trust access, multi-factor authentication to access that service, as well as strong levels of encryption, following things like FIPS 140-2 and having AES 256-bit encryption in place. And on the other side of it, right, with the storage, so that would be for your service primarily, but we want to make sure that we apply the same controls to our storage itself. So it's good to have your backup environment that's running those operations decoupled from the storage itself. But we still need really strong security around that storage target, of course, because that's where your data is residing. So in the event of an attack, that's where you're going to go to get that data back. And so it's really important to have that air gap in place for your backup storage. Now, there's a couple ways that you can secure your cloud-based storage, some of which being putting in protections like that zero trust concept and multi-factor authentication for those tenants. You can also turn on object locks on that storage target to prevent any changes to the underlying storage once data has been written. Or in the case of a lot of our customers, we also saw a need for full separation between storage target and customer environment. And that's where we introduced our Metallic Recovery Reserve storage service, which provides that full air gap between production and storage by ensuring that customers don't actually have any underlying access to the Azure tenant where the storage resides. Now, this is protection against both ransomware from external bad actors, but also internal bad actors. People who might have access to the internal network or to credentials to Azure tenants, things like that. Having this offsite copy in the cloud while also completely decoupling the storage from the production environment is providing our customers with a really strong security solution for their backup data so that it's fully isolated, but still in that offsite location and available for quick recovery. The next stage here is going to be the detect stage. Now, this is where we're going to be looking for threats and identifying what those threats might be, suspicious activities that are outside of the norm. So this is where we're really looking for something that's going on before an event has actually occurred. Now, in the case of a backup environment, we can do that through anomaly detection as well as honeypot files on the file systems that we're protecting. So we can monitor for things like files being created, files being modified, files being deleted that's outside of the norm. But these tools, although extremely helpful to help detect something that is out of the ordinary and potentially a threat, they're also happening after the backup has been taken. So this would be happening in that stage where an attack maybe has already occurred or data has already been modified. So it's really important to be able to track these changes and then identify them so that a response can be implemented. But we may also want to look at detecting threats before an event has actually occurred. Now, cyber detection is, again, a little different from backups in that it's happening earlier in the life cycle of a ransomware attack. Now, where cyber deception comes into play is that space in between of protecting your production environment and having to recover from your backups. But when we think of cyber deception, this is where we're going to create fake assets and actually put them in production, as opposed to looking at them on the back end from the backups. Now, these fake assets are lightweight, they're easily configurable, and they look just like production assets. However, they hold no production value in your environment. This could be something like an Active Directory user that looks like an administrator, but it's not. It could be a virtual machine. Anything that has an IP address, a router, a switch within your on-prem network can be a good candidate for a cyber deception sensor. And really, these sensors are used to not only distract attackers so that when attackers come into the network and they start to sit and collect information, but also to give your teams a chance to identify where those attackers are sitting in the environment so that they can then make changes and lock down the environment and increase the protections that you have in place. So when we think about modern ransomware attacks, a lot of attackers aren't just gaining access to a customer's network and then immediately encrypting their data. Attackers will come in and they'll sit and they'll collect information. So you might have a wide range of devices and components within your network, and an attacker isn't going to come in and just immediately do something. They're going to sit and move laterally through the network. The first place they land is probably not going to be that crown jewel that they're looking to attack or to gather information from, but they might be in a place where it's not super valuable information, but it has a path to something that's more valuable. Now, this is really where threat sensors come into play, because we can use these fake sensors to distract as well as identify that someone is doing something that they shouldn't be. Because these sensors have no production value, attackers who are touching them, we know that they shouldn't be there because no one in our organization would be using this asset since it has no production value. So when an attacker engages with one of these sensors, we'll send that data to an external tool. So that could be the dashboard or the cyber deception tool, or it could be an external tool like a CM that you have in place to monitor log events across your whole environment. And this event notification will allow users to identify that threat before something has actually occurred in an effort to get further back in that life cycle of a security event so that we can identify that threat and lock things down before we even need to get to that stage of recovering from a backup. After we've done some of that detection, right? So of course, we're looking for threats in advance of an attack through cyber deception, but we may also be using those helpful insights from our backup environment to detect those threats as well. And once we detect that something has occurred, if there has been an impact to the environment, that's where we want to respond. Now, respond might sound a lot like recover or restore, and sometimes it's a step that gets skipped in the framework, but the important thing here is that response is about limiting the negative impact as well as determining what you're going to do with the information that you gathered in the detection phase. When we look at something like an unusual file activity dashboard where we're looking at those anomaly alerts, we'll get information like what file system, what folder was affected during that analysis that triggered the anomaly alert. This can help you determine, what systems are infected, what systems need to be locked down because they either have been infected or they may be at risk of being infected. This is really where you use these tools to not only just gather information, but determine what you're going to do with that information before you recover your data. The same is true when you're using cyber deception. You'll get these alerts, and depending on the nature of the alert or what activity has been performed, you'll want to then make decisions about how you're going to respond to that event before you go into recovery. Again, having those intelligent alerts are really critical to determine how you're going to respond. And so the ability to integrate with those external tools are really going to help with that response process. whether it's through syslog, webhooks, direct integration with the CM and store platform. Having those audit events, alerts, and logs pushed out there is going to assist in your ability to respond, as well as automate processes as part of that response. Then the last phase here is going to be the recover phase. Now, this is what we all think of when we think of backup and recovery, right? Backup and recovery. We're going to pull our data back so that we can start operations after an event has occurred. Now, when you're looking at recovering data, there's a couple things to consider. One, of course, that you're able to recover in the first place. So your backup environment is secured. You have the tools you need to recover the specific data that you need that was maybe impacted by the security event, but also that you have flexibility in terms of where you're going to recover that data. For example, if you're backing up data that's on-prem and you have a copy locally so that you can do restores between your local copy and your production environment in the event of something like accidental deletion or things like that, needing to revert back to an earlier version. That's really, really useful. And even in the event of a security event like a ransomware attack, you may still be able to leverage your local copy once your on-prem environment has been secured, depending on how broad the attack was and what systems were affected. This is why it's really important to have a solution that is going to give you flexibility in terms of where your backup copies reside, both on-prem and in the cloud, as well as where you can recover that data to. So having a solution that is highly flexible, and even if your whole on-prem environment was no longer available, you can still restore that data elsewhere, is going to give you the full flexibility to respond to that ransomware attack in the way that is the best fit for that particular event. Similarly, you want to have granular recovery options. So when you're looking to recover data, there might be certain components that are top priority. And so when you're looking at backup and recovery tools, you want them to be built in such a way that you can have those flexible destinations. So say you have that offsite cloud copy, you can recover that data to the cloud instead of having to recover it back on-prem. So for your VMware VMs, instead of doing a VMware to VMware restore and having those VMs back on-prem, maybe your on-prem environment is not ready for that recovery yet, and you need to restore those VMs to Azure as Azure VMs. With a tool that has flexible but robust restore options, you'll have the ability to choose the granularity. So in this case here, we can see we can choose guest files, virtual machine files for the full virtual machine restore, including live recovery and live mount options. We can also choose that flexible destination for that recovery. So we'd be able to restore these VMware VMs out into Azure, and the software itself will go through the process of converting that VM over to the cloud VM so that we can then start using it in the cloud while our security team is still responding to the on-prem event. Now, that covers what the different components of the NIST framework would be for cybersecurity: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. There's a lot of different facets to this, and again, we really focused on how this applies to your backup environment. But as we know, all of these principles do apply across all components of our environments. So we'd be looking at applying this concept in production for our production systems. And this very tightly relates to how we treat our backup environment. So we have solutions in place with our customers that cover this full framework and really give them peace of mind that they'll be able to recover their data when they need it. If we look at something like Metallic Software as a Service solution, we're offering a data protection as a service solution where the service itself is hosted in Azure, but we're able to protect a wide range of workloads within our customers' environments. Again, in this digital transformation landscape where we have workloads on-prem, in the cloud, in software as a service applications, as well as customers who have endpoint devices that are out in the field. We want to be able to protect all of those workloads while still providing a really secure solution so that in the event of a ransomware attack, the backup environment is safe and able to be restored. This includes things like Metallic ThreatWise, which would be that cyber deception tool to help you identify those threats earlier in the life cycle through things like those fake assets that can be put within your production environment to help detect those potential attackers before an event has actually occurred. With a solution like Metallic with Commvault, we're able to protect all components of a customer's environment, regardless of where they are in their hybrid cloud journey. This could be their SaaS applications like Office 365, Dynamics 365. It could be traditional workloads on-prem like virtual machines, physical databases, physical servers, or even cloud workloads. So infrastructure as a service in services like Azure, AWS, or Oracle. With a software as a service backup solution such as Metallic, you'll really benefit from reduced infrastructure, automatic updates, and simple management, while still getting that enterprise-grade security. If you want to give Metallic a try, you can create a free trial. It's a free 30 days. You can test it out and see all of the different ways that we can protect your data through a SaaS delivery model. Thank you so much for attending, and we hope to speak with you soon.
All right. Thanks so much, Caitlin. Really appreciate that presentation on Commvault Metallic. I've just brought up a poll question for everyone out there in the audience, and it says, what additional information would you like about the Commvault Metallic solution? We do want to get your feedback on this. Would you like personal details or personal demo, pricing details? Maybe you'd like to try it out for yourself, get a data sheet, technical white paper, or learn about other customers who are already using this solution. We do want to get your feedback, and I'll leave that up for a few moments here while I announce our prize winners. Let's see, we've got another Amazon gift card. This is going out to Adam Fineglass from Washington. And then the next winner for another set of the Apple Grand Prize. Let's see, our Apple Grand Prize. This is going out to someone with a very good last name, Chris Davis from Virginia. Congratulations, Chris Davis from Virginia. All right, thank you to everyone who responded there to the poll question. If you haven't responded, now is the time to do it. If you have responded, make sure that you check out the handouts tab there, because there's a link. It is fourth down the list. It says Commvault. That if you click on that, that'll take you to a solution brief on why hybrid cloud data protection. It talks about the Metallic solution, how it's all about security, the Metallic architecture, storage, and how recovery works with the solution. So make sure that you check that solution brief out there in the handouts tab. All right, thank you to everyone who responded to the poll. It's now time to welcome our next presenter on the MegaCast. Today, I'm excited to introduce Mr. Lance Shaw, who is the Director of Product Marketing at Nasuni. Hey, Lance, it's great to have you on.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, take it away. Tell us about Nasuni.
All right, why not? Let's try it. All right, hi everyone. Glad you could make it, and glad you've attended a number of very interesting sessions, and I'm glad you hung in there. You know, this whole event today is about understanding your cloud native data protection and DR options, and we've heard from a variety of vendors. I want to talk to you about a little different approach, quite frankly. See if I can get you thinking a little bit differently around how you think about protecting your files in the cloud and why you want to have them there in the first place. Right? First of all, let's set the stage. When we talk about files, we talk about unstructured data. We're talking about what is typically the vast majority of a data in the organization of your data, right? Gartner, estimates 80 to 90% of your enterprise data is unstructured. That's a lot. That would make it important. While some will debate that number, maybe it's 72.5, maybe it's 81. It's a large number. That's the point, right? And you've got and typically organizations have this data in these files that it's just scattered to the four winds, right? And I'm sure there are some of you out there right now that are in that exact same position. You've got files in SharePoint, you've got files on NAS systems, you've got files in Windows File Service, you've got some in the cloud, you've got files in Box, you've got Shadow IT like crazy. Fantastic, right? So, but it's everywhere is the point. It's distributed. But there's a couple key trends here that are going to change the way some of that is done, especially in organizations like yourselves. The first data point I'll bring up to you is yet another Gartner data point. I'm on a roll with Gartner data points today. Within the next 5 years, 70% of file and object data will be deployed on a single consolidated unstructured data storage platform, right? And that's a big jump from the 35% estimated to be today. That's effectively double in size, and all of this is geared towards simplifying how you do file storage and keeping items under one umbrella instead of 20 umbrellas. The other key data point that I'll share with you is that when we talk about cloud native, we also talk about hybrid cloud. And those words, it's buzzword bingo, right? Those words get thrown around a lot. Hybrid cloud is in many ways more achievable for organizations. And there's some key reasons why I'll show you in a moment. But Gartner estimates that in the next 3.5 years, 60% of you will have implemented a hybrid cloud file deployment, up from 20% today. So again, another significant jump. And there's a reason for this, right? Why, some people say, well, my files are fine. They're where I know where they're at, even though they're scattered all over the place. And yes, I don't mind administering, 10 different systems. Well, there's some reasons why you maybe want to rethink that approach. And here's some of them. The idea of a hybrid cloud file data service and the storage in the cloud is really one around consolidation, around efficiency, around cost reduction, and performance, and being able to scale. So there's a couple key things to call out here. What makes this interesting? One is a single namespace, in the fact that I have one environment to administer, one environment to protect. That's key, and that I can leverage. I love to use the word leverage, economies of scale, right? And I can take advantage of object storage in the cloud, which is significantly less expensive than using traditional file storage or file storage in the cloud for that matter. But then I also need performance. Sometimes for many organizations, any kind of cloud latency is prohibitive towards moving to the cloud. But when I leverage a hybrid environment that takes advantage of virtual machines, either generally local but close or near where my people are, and they could be in the cloud as well, but typically it's on premises or somewhere closer, shall we say, to the user. With that edge access, you get the performance and you eliminate the latency concerns that you typically have with cloud. And the other aspect of this is that I can leverage multiple clouds, right? It doesn't matter which one. It's not one or the other, although frequently you have a primary cloud provider, but you have the ability to move between clouds or leverage a multi-cloud environment for better additional regional aspects, regional concerns when we're dealing with data sovereignty, or if you are simply kind of going to an extreme air gap scenario where you're actually using other clouds from an air gap perspective. So there's a number of elements that are attractive in terms of making it easier to administer and easier to scale, because you don't have any limits here, right? When you move to object storage, you no longer have limitations on number of files in a directory, number of volumes, any of that. Those all go away. Now, from a data protection perspective and DR perspective, which is, after all, why we're here today, there's a number of other key aspects to this model. With object storage, you have the capability of having an infinite number of immutable snapshots, right? And organizations sometimes will take this to an extreme, but it's okay. You can do it. We have organizations that will just have a snapshot every 5 minutes for the last several years. That's a lot of snapshots, but without limits, you can do that. The other benefit from an end user perspective, sometimes a more particular specific file perspective, are the advantage of being able to have continuous file versioning. Every save is a new one inside of an object storage model. So you can go back, you have an infinite number of versions on a particular file. And for the average Word document, you don't need that. But sometimes when you're looking at very large files or critical files, like you're dealing with for example, AutoCAD or InDesign, and you need to go back to quite a while or figure out why such a decision was made, years later, you have that ability to do so. From a data protection perspective, the idea of having immutable snapshots allows you to have a disaster recovery model that is substantially faster than most others, right? So when you're looking at your unstructured data, you're able to, you don't, when a region, let's say a region goes down or an area is hit with some sort of disaster, it's just simply a matter of spinning up another edge device or redirecting those users to an edge device that you already have and pointing them there, and they're on their way. So the disaster recovery becomes significantly faster than mounting a VM or trying to go, or some of the more traditional processes with some other technologies. And then also with this model, you're also able to recover a large amount of files, entire volumes, very quickly, because you're simply going back to a snapshot that was exceptionally recent. And so we have organizations that are able to recover thousands, if not millions, of files in a minute, or okay, we'll say 50 seconds or 90 seconds. But the point is very, very fast. Your recovery is no longer something to be feared, and how long that's going to take. And we see that in the news a lot, right? Unfortunately, right? It's one of those things where organizations have been down for days or weeks because they're in the middle of recovery. Recovery should not take that long. With this model, you don't have to. And the other key aspect of this from a data protection perspective is, where do I detect a ransomware attack? In previous presentations that you've heard today, we talked about, we talk about the NIST framework, right? And we all follow that, and how you want to be able to detect immediately and negate the impact. And in order to do that, it needs to be right where it happens immediately. And when you have edge devices in a hybrid model like this, your ransomware detection occurs there as well, right? And so it's not allowed to spread, is not allowed to go elsewhere, does not go to the other VMs. The detection happens at the edge device in a very short period of time. And I'll show a little bit about that here in a second. So all of this kind of turns typical file data protection on its head, because I'm not looking at having to rely on a separate tool for this. My storage becomes my security model, right? So I'm actually able to eliminate file backup and recovery software and infrastructure from my model once I've moved to a hybrid cloud file storage model. Because I have edge detection, I can dramatically reduce the cyber attack impact on my organization, can significantly limit it and initiate immediate recovery. And because I've consolidated everything into a single namespace in a single environment, there's a huge drop in the impact on your IT resources and all those systems you have to manage. And of course, any system worth its salt is going to be integrating with your SIEM and SOAR solutions in terms of sharing event logs and doing secondary analysis and secondary automated responses based on the activities that occurred in your file system. So, let's take a look at that. I mean, so, I think we all know that time is money. And when a cyber attack occurs, and if it does get into your spread and it is replicated across your backup environment, and the recovery time is significantly extended. And as we've seen from other scenarios and with unfortunate ones with other organizations, the longer that the ransomware is allowed to fester and spread, and if it's not detected, the blast radius simply expands and expands, and there are significant impacts on your organization. Whatever your organization does, it's impacted, right? So if you can, and when you can, I should say, when you can detect and mitigate immediately in a very localized fashion and shut it down, your recovery time is going to be significantly improved, but the downstream impact is eliminated, and that has huge ramifications on cost, as we'll see. Downtime is everything, right? The ransom itself is probably nothing in comparison to what the downtime typically costs an organization. And your mileage may vary, but if it only costs $400 to recover, like, well, hey, that's a golf outing for your executive team. That's not so bad. But it ramps up very quickly and gets into the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars before you know it. and this is where the real money is, and that's where the real impact is. So anything you can do to mitigate that impact and reduce the blast impact is critical. Now I'm going to share with you sort of one other sort of key idea here is this one. This is around cyber storage, a term that if you haven't heard, probably will. And according to ransomware, according to Gartner, in the next 5 years, a whopping 100% of storage products will include cyber storage capabilities, right? And this is all focused on active defense, and not just recovery, but detection and mitigation. That's, by the way, 100%. I don't know if you ever see that kind of number from Gartner in their typical data points here, right? But going from 10% to 100% in 5 years or less, it's pretty fast. And so this is the kind of thing that really is going to become expected, right? And you should be expecting it now, unless you really want to wait around until 2028, which I don't think any of you really do. You really want to be able to start putting systems in place that allow you to have a defense in-depth strategy that doesn't rely on a single tool, but rather relies on storage and security at multiple layers of your ecosystem. And so, with this in mind, there are going to be some ramifications and implications associated with that. One is, well, there's that multi-layered component that I talked to, right? And that's where you have the right tools for the right job and for the right data as localized as possible, right? As opposed to waiting to recover or detect it, hours or days later in a backup or somewhere else. And quite frankly, when it comes to your file data like this, you don't have to rely on backups anymore for ransomware recovery. It's built into the object storage, built into the storage model, and it allows you to take that a more active approach to how you approach cyber storage and cybersecurity, and the NIST framework. Quite frankly, being able to identify, protect, and respond and recover in a very fast way, and ideally right out at the edge where it occurs, right? Really nipping it in the bud, as it were. So, I want to share with you a quote that I read recently one morning, kind of over coffee, kind of going through the news, and it was a Forbes article. They were talking to Phil Venables, who's the Google Cloud CISO, and he said, look, a big part of security is modernizing away from old legacy infrastructure. And that's a big component of this, right? This is why I started where I did. We were talking about getting off of legacy NAS, Windows file servers, assorted other systems, and bringing it into the cloud and in an environment where security is built in, not bolted on after the fact, right? And that's really a fundamental appeal of moving to a hybrid cloud file data storage model, is that you have this storage built in, ready to go, and integrates with the other security tools that you have. It's not isolated. It's not one size fits all. It's dedicated to that particular area and ties into your the rest of your organization. So I thought that was an interesting quote from Phil. I would reach out to him about it, but he never calls me back. I don't know why. So and this is where the obligatory vendor plug comes in, right? You've been waiting for it. I know you have. And every pitch has it. But this is where Nasuni excels. And this is where I encourage you to learn more about Nasuni, because it's really a unique, built for the cloud, a truly cloud native solution that leverages a hybrid model to provide that intelligent caching at the edge, to provide that data protection at the edge, and the ransomware detection and the mitigation and fast recovery. And it uses a unique hub and spoke architecture model to take advantage of the efficiencies of object storage, right? They are many, and it's a fantastic way to go. And you're not locked into a particular cloud vendor. Some organizations have already made commitments to a particular cloud vendor. This is just a natural extension of that as organizations move their on premises or systems that they did a lift and shift into the cloud previously but aren't getting the value from into a particular cloud provider's object storage, really of your choice. And Nasuni offers a number of patented technologies that make this simple to use and very powerful. And like I said, it's a single global namespace, so it appears and acts as a single global file system. The edge caching gives you that performance and the other benefits of being able to access files locally at the edge, including protect them, all managed through an orchestration center and a management console in a single environment, so your IT resources are not spread like peanut butter across the organization trying to manage many, many different file share systems. And you can add on to this too, right? You're not just limited. It's not just a place to put your files, but it really helps organizations in terms of, we've talked about ransomware protection, but also in terms of being able to share files in a geo-distributed model, right? We have organizations that are working on files in Europe, and then they need to move them to Los Angeles for post-production or doing editing or whatever the case may be, and sharing on a kind of a global follow the sun model, being able to stay in sync continuously, not having to worry about file conflicts, and really making teams more efficient, especially with large amounts of files and with large files in some cases. And then of course, you've got all this data you've got all your unstructured file data in a single environment. That's great. You also need the data intelligence tools to be able to do content searching, to discovery, to automate different workflows. And it certainly also serves as a foundation for other AI access and AI leveraged, because you wouldn't have a presentation if you didn't mention the word AI at least once. So there you go. You're welcome. But that certainly that becomes a source and a point where you could gain additional knowledge and insights from the data that you have in that file share environment. So, ladies and gentlemen, everyone, I really appreciate your time. I want to encourage you to consider how you store your unstructured data, right? Think about where it lives and how valuable is it to your organization, and how do you want to manage that going forward? If it's going to continue to grow, which it is exponentially, you need to break free of the limitations and the restrictions of a typical file storage model as we've known it for the past 20, 30 years, right? It becomes untenable. It becomes exceptionally expensive to manage, and it really behooves many organizations, as hundreds and hundreds of companies have done already, to move to a tool like Nasuni to be able to gain the benefits and sort of free themselves from the bondage of NAS and traditional file shares. There's a quote for the day, huh? So I would encourage you to visit us at nasuni.com/data security. Nasuni.com will also do rather nicely. And I really want to thank you for the time and for your attention, and for considering ways you can improve your environment, save a ton of money, and set yourself up for the kind of scalability and security and performance that you need. Thank you.
Great presentation, Lance. I really enjoyed that. I learned a lot. I know the audience did as well. Lots of great questions have come in. If you have a question for Lance at Nasuni, now is the time to get it in. I'm just going to bring up a poll question for everyone out there while we take live audience questions. The question on the screen is, what additional information would you like from Lance about the Nasuni solution? Datasheet, white paper, case studies, pricing, personal demo. Maybe you want to try it out. Let us know your feedback on this. Your feedback is always important, so we appreciate it. Let's see, Lance, a lot of great questions. I'll just start with this one from Jeffrey, who's asking, is a single namespace known to the user?
Essentially, no, because they see it as a mapped drive, right? So that's a great question, by the way. So as a user, I come in on Monday and my M drive is now mapped to Nasuni. There's absolutely no impact on workflow or processes or anything else. So from a user experience perspective, I hate to use the word seamless. It sounds so like a marketing term, but it really is. It's the kind of thing where we've literally had customers say, when's this going to happen? Or one customer was talking about how his C-level came to him and said, when are we going to do that migration to Nasuni? He said, we already did it. And that's the way it should be, right? It should be that seamless. It should be not the kind of thing where you have to go off and tell your users what a global namespace is.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's the kind of solution you want right there. One that you can put in and nobody ever even realizes it, and things are just better. So excellent. Another question. Let's see. Pamela wants to know what all databases in AWS and Snowflake do you support?
So we're not really supporting with databases per se, because we're leveraging the native object storage models in AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, IBM Cloud, other private clouds. So it's not leveraging a database as you might think of it.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for clarifying on that one. Holden has got a really long question here. Can you elaborate on how Nasuni envisions revolutionizing the landscape of enterprise file services? You can probably read the rest of it there for yourself, but can you give us kind of the Nasuni vision?
Yeah, I'm looking for that question. That's can you let me the landscape of enterprise file services by seamlessly blending cloud native? That is Holden, what a fabulous question. That is I think it's a setup. That's a great question. Really, you're really getting to how you manage how companies want to manage their enterprise file services. How are you going to provide files and your data to your user population, to your partners, what have you. By leveraging, taking advantage of cloud native object storage, that's where you get that infinite scalability. It's this kind of thing. It's almost hard to imagine. Like, what do you mean I don't have a limit? I'm so used to having limits. If I've been in this business for 25, whatever, I don't want to say how long I've been here. If I've been in this business for a while, it's like, well, we ran out of room. We got to spin up a new environment, or here comes my my vendor, and it's time. The 3-year contract is up, and they want to sell me some more storage. This allows you to scale as you need to. And that kind of flexibility, along with local performance in a single place, it really, quite frankly, it revolutionizes how you think about how you're going to grow your business, because you get to, you're no longer inhibited by those limits. You can lay out data or provide access to data as you need it and where it's necessary. So it's I had a customer tell me one time, it's like, they had a scenario where they had a bunch of untapped resources available in the Chicago area, and meanwhile Singapore, they were dying first. They were going to have to buy more physical storage. Well, that kind of model goes away, right? You can flexibly and dynamically allocate, resources within this single namespace on the fly. And you can spin up if the Singapore office is experiencing tremendous growth, you can spin up a couple more edge resources to handle the exceptionally high volume there, and you're good to go. So it gives you that flexibility, leveraging a single platform. And at the end of the day, if any of this costs a lot more, folks aren't going to be interested in it, right? But the cost avoidance that you realize when you stop spending money on high cost file storage models and move to an object storage model, to say nothing of negating the need for file data backup and recovery models as they've traditionally been available, the savings are tremendous. We have organizations that have saved upwards of 50%. So from what they used to spend. So that's sort of how Nasuni envisions revolutionizing the landscape, Holden. It's really getting people to think differently and think about file data storage in a different way, and in a way that's frankly sort of freeing.
I like it. Sounds great. Chad's got a good question here. What level of automation and centralized management does Nasuni offer in its cloud native data protection and disaster recovery to simplify operations across different cloud platforms?
Great question, Chad. Thank you. Just looking at your question here. Yeah, effectively, I skimmed over it in my whirlwind presentation there, but there's a Nasuni management console that allows you to manage the entire environment in a single location. So when I was talking about IT resources and not having to have specialized training in 10 different systems and knowing how to run, one person's an expert in NetApp, and one expert's an expert on the Isilon environment, et cetera, it just gets crazy. So you have that single environment, And from an automation perspective and a workflow perspective, organizations then tie your applications into leveraging the data within that environment. And I guess I should also point out that there's the awareness and the intelligence built in that lets you know when your environment is maybe let's say you're back to my example about Singapore. You're running into like, wow, there's 500 more people here than we originally planned, and the data use is tremendous. We're going to go ahead and spin up another edge device. So you want to know that that's happening and be alerted and have the automation to do that and to monitor the overall health and well-being of your environment. And the other thing that I'll talk about, since we're talking about data protection here, is the automated integration with a SIEM system, things like Microsoft Sentinel or others, that where you're tying in your alerts and your notification system inherent to the file share environment and sharing that information with others so that your SysOps teams are aware of what's going on, and effectively Nasuni with its edge detection sort of becomes an early warning system, if you will, that that something went wrong in a remote location. We've got some corruptions, something's been detected, and start investigating and see what else in the scheme of things might be impacted. I hope that somewhat answers your question, Chad.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think you might have covered a couple of the other questions out here in that answer. There's a couple of folks asking about, does Nasuni integrate with my EDR? Does it integrate with my Splunk? Does it integrate with X, Y, and Z?
Yes.
What are the details on integrations?
Sure. Let me clarify that a little bit, since we're talking about EDR or Splunk. So the answer is yes. So typically that happens via syslog, as was mentioned in earlier vendor presentations. It's a standardized way of being able to share event activities and then take action on them. So in the case of an EDR solution or an XDR solution, where we share that information, where they can, in that scenario, deal with an endpoint in particular. We didn't have a chance to get into it in great detail, but Nasuni does do that as part of our ransomware protection solution that I talked about at the edge. We do, when something is detected, we do shut down the client, take action, fire off all kinds of warnings, and obviously notify inside the Nasuni environment. But when we integrate with a SIEM system, or integrate with something like Splunk or CrowdStrike or Sentinel or what have you, then we're just taking that to the next level and sharing that information and saying, you need to go look into this and take action, or run other playbooks or automated responses based on that particular type of activity. So the answer, that's a very long-winded way of saying, yes, we can do that.
Nice. Let's see, we've got maybe time for just a couple more questions. Here's one we haven't answered yet. They're asking, what if a corrupted file gets copied into the cloud? Does it spread from there?
So the answer is no. No, that would be a bad thing. That would first of all, it's going to be caught, and if it is corruption or files are being written, it's going to be caught at that edge device. But let's just say hypothetically, that did get moved into as written effectively as a new copy of the file, and did get to the cloud. That would be a matter of restoring that particular snapshot, going back to the immutable snapshot from the moment before, and obliterating it. So it would not be spread beyond that.
Got it. Okay. And with that, I think we're just about out of time. Lance, what should folks do if they want to get started with Nasuni?
Well, we definitely encourage folks to reach out to us, visit us at nasuni.com, of course. And from there, you can request a demo. You can ask other questions. You can certainly, there's a raft of assets available to you to be able to to download and do your own research, of course. But we're more than happy to be able to engage, and the proof's in the pudding. Show you how it works, show you what it does, and really share the load of customer testimonials where other, it's one thing for the vendor to say that they're great. It's another thing when the customers say that you're great. And we have a large number of customers that will testify to realizing some huge gains and being able to really move off of this system, move off of their previous legacy systems, and get to Nasuni pretty quickly and easily. So I think that the best step is to visit us at nasuni.com.
Excellent. All right. Well, that's a great place to wrap up. Visit nasuni.com. Also, check out the handouts tab. There is a link there to a Nasuni resource on eliminating backup challenges with Nasuni. Make sure that you check that out. Lance, thanks so much for your great presentation. Thanks for being on.
All right. Hey, listen, thank you. And thanks everybody for attending. Appreciate it.
And if you haven't answered the poll question out there in the audience, now's your time to do it, because I'm about to announce our next set of prize winners, and then we'll move on to our next presentation. So make sure you answer the poll. The next Amazon gift card, this is going out to Epan Thomas from Ohio. Congratulations. And our next set of our next Apple iPad Air in your choice of color, this is going out to Ian Case from Pennsylvania. Congratulations. Still one more gift card and one more Apple iPad Air to give out on the MegaCast today. So make sure that you stay tuned for those. With that, let's move on to our next presenters on the MegaCast. I'm excited now to welcome Teresa Miller, who is a director for technical advisory, and Shelley Calhoun-Jones, who is a principal technologist in the technology advocacy group, both from Cohesity. Teresa and Shelley, it's great to have you on the MegaCast. Take it away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Cohesity session, choosing a next-generation data protection and disaster recovery solution. So, data protection and disaster recovery solutions are undergoing a revolution. The emergence of cloud makes these solutions more capable, faster, and more resilient than ever. But keep in mind, ransomware is making disaster recovery planning as well as data protection more important than ever. And we even have the C-suite and the boardroom involved and invested in the right decisions. So today we are going to take you on a journey that is a little bit more cyber resiliency focused, in the sense that we're going to show you how, when you put data protection together with a cyber resiliency strategy, allowing for disaster recovery, you get an even more powerful impact and benefit. My name is Teresa Miller. I am the Director of Technical Advocacy here at Cohesity. I'm here to intro the topic today, as well as handle the Q&A at the end. I am also joined today by Shelley Calhoun-Jones, who is a principal technologist at Cohesity, and she is going to go ahead and talk to you about our topic today.
Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Shelley Calhoun-Jones, and I'm delighted to be here today, and I want to thank everyone for joining us. But before we get started, what is cyber resilience? Cyber resilience measures how well an organization can manage an attack while continuing to operate its business effectively. It's made up of two concepts: cybersecurity, which in most organizations means the ability to withstand an attack, and data resilience, which means the ability to recover quickly. Let's take a look at how this works within Cohesity DataHawk. Cohesity takes a comprehensive approach when it comes to data security, utilizing multiple layers of cybersecurity and data-centric security measures to protect data from all angles. And our approach is divided into three different stages: protect, detect, and recover, which can really be thought of as the before, during, and after. When we say protect, what this means is to ensure that we are taking advantage of our full data protection, we're going to utilize data resiliency and access controls to secure the backup and recovery process. We also maintain an immutable copy of your data to prevent ransomware attacks, which will often target backup environments. In addition, we also use a concept which is called RBAC, or Role-Based Access Controls, with the principle of least privilege. We'll also notice that we use MFA, which means that we have the ability to leverage multi-factor authentication and features like quorum, which require approval from multiple individuals for critical changes to help ensure that you maintain your data security. From a detect standpoint, we use various methods for threat detection, such as anomaly detection, monitoring for malware and user activity, and performing data classification scans. From a recover standpoint, if we do need to perform a data recovery, we use a multi-pronged approach. And so features like our global search allows us to search for specific data, while we also have the ability to perform mass recovery at scale. So if you need to recover a large workload, let's say you have a couple hundred servers that you need to recover, we have the ability to recover using mass recovery by using what's called a known good data point. Now we're going to dive a little bit deeper on this concept later in this session, but let's dive deeper on how DataHawk extends data protection, taking a look at the following features. During the protect phase, Cohesity offers 3 ways that you can set up protection, including data isolation. This feature allows you to keep an immutable copy of your data until needed, which is also known as cyber vaulting. Cyber vaulting is essential because what it does is it allows organizations to retain, recover, and be resilient against ransomware. In particular, ransomware that could target your backup environment. Attackers rely on their victims not having a valid and complete backup to force them to pay the ransom. In the detection phase, 2 critical features are highlighted: threat protection and data classification. Data classification allows you to quantify the type of data that you're backing up. It allows you to classify large sets of data, and in turn, it gives you the ability to help go in and reduce risk and strengthen your security posture. An example would be if you have a mission-critical workload that you're backing up and you want to understand the type of data that's being hosted on that mission-critical workload, you can learn about the data that it's using and, in turn, deploy more robust security policies. So that's the benefit of using features like data classification. But for a lot of organizations, you could be managing both your backup operations and your security operations in different parts of the company. And so, in turn, you may have different tools that you use. And so, to address this issue, Cohesity integrates with many popular security solutions like Splunk, Microsoft Sentinel, Palo Alto, and Tenable for vulnerability management. And so by extending your data protection, you're able to build out a more solid security foundation, which is really critical for any type of security event, making sure that you have the ability not only to recover, but also have the ability to respond quickly. Those are the 2 key areas I wanted to call out. So to quickly summarize, with Cohesity DataHawk, you can use features like the Security Center, which is going to give you a single view into all security functions and a snapshot of your environment. You can use Cohesity Fort Knox for cyber vaulting and improve your ability to detect ransomware and other threats in your backup data using Cohesity Threat Protection. Cohesity also offers data classification and SOC integrations to help automate threat response in your environment. Before we jump over to a demo, I want to emphasize that for threat protection and data classification, these are delivered as a fully managed service. Only the metadata is going to get sent to the cloud for monitoring, which means that you can meet your data residency goals and your data never leaves the Cohesity cluster. Data classification and threat intelligence workloads run on-prem using a Cohesity Marketplace app, and data sources can be either VM backups or unstructured data. So we're going to go ahead and jump into Cohesity DataHawk. I'm going to show you a server With an anomalous snapshot, we'll also take a look at some files with sensitive data, so we can take a look at that data classification feature. We'll go through the process of performing a threat detection scan, and I'll walk you through some scan results. Let's get started. Okay, so right now we are in the Security Center dashboard. This gives us the ability to get a quick pulse check on our security posture, threat protection, data sensitivity, and also cyber vaulting. But for right now, let's go ahead and click on anti-ransomware, and we're going to identify a server that we'll research. Okay, so in this example, we have two different servers that are showing with anomalous snapshots. I'm going to go ahead and click on the second entry here so we can take a look. And in this example, we can see that all backup activity was normal until June 21st. And at that point, Cohesity detected anomalous activity and blocked the snapshot. Let's go ahead and take a look at the trends, which shows us all trends of anomalous and clean snapshots, as well as our expired snapshots. And so in this example, we can see that more data was written on our anomalous snapshot versus our clean snapshot. So that's something that we're going to want to document, because with ransomware, it not only blocks access to files, but the infection can also download files and other malware from a command and control server. But also keep in mind that we're seeing all activity for this server snapshot. So at this point, we're just doing initial data gathering about the event. Now, to learn more, what I can do is I can click on the Affected Files tab and drill down to the files that were added or modified. If there's a particular point of interest, for example, if I want to download this file into a forensic environment, I can do that. I can just click on the ellipsis and select Download File. And then from that environment, the security operations team can do further investigation of the issue. You'll also see up at the top here, we have the ability to filter. So if I only wanted to see files that were deleted, for example, maybe I want to do a quick recovery, which I can do up here, I can drill down and look specifically at the files that were deleted. You'll also notice that we have a file sensitivity tab, and the reason for this is that a lot of times we want to understand the data that was impacted. And so that's one of the cool things, is that with DataHawk, it gives us the ability to perform data classification scans to quantify the type of data that resides in our backup. And so in this example, we can see that we had several files with credit card information. We can also see some files with medium sensitivity patterns. And if I wanted to, I can click on this entry here to view all files with sensitive information. In this example, we're looking at files with credit card information. So we have a server with anomalous activity, and although, granted, we can gather some insights here, we can also gain more visibility within Cohesity DataHawk. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of this, and we're going to browse down to the threat protection section. And you'll see here that we have a section called Threat Detection, which allows us to perform threat intelligence scans on our servers. Okay, so first what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can run a threat detection scan. And then we're actually going to go in and take a look at some scan results. But to show you the interface, let me go ahead and click on Start Detection. We'll select Threat Intelligence. And I'm going to go ahead and search for my DH server. And so in this example, you can see that we have DH134. I can click Next. I can either choose to scan the most recent snapshot, or I can actually scan within a custom date range. I also have the ability to skip larger files. So if I wanted to skip files larger than 200 megabytes, I could do that as well. That would be the process for setting up a new threat intelligence scan. Let me actually go in and show you the scan results for one of these recent scans that we performed. And so I'm going to click on TM Server 08, and we can see that for TM Server 08, we did receive some anomalous files from that scan. And what I can do is I can actually highlight the file hash here. I can copy, and then I can go out to VirusTotal and copy in that file hash. And you can see it's going to come back with hits showing that this file has been seen out in the wild and has been flagged as malicious by various security vendors. So this is a wonderful tool that you can use for learning more about the files that are not only residing in your environment, but you can also use it for identifying indicators of compromise. Just one last piece before we wrap up is I just want to show you that you do also have the ability to perform data classification scans. We took a brief look at that within the anti-ransomware section, but you'll also see that we have a lot of predefined patterns that have already been defined within DataHawk, and you have the ability to create more. And when I say a data pattern, this is any type of information that you may use within your organization, maybe like a particular format that you use for entering in things like invoice information, credit card numbers, medical information, any other type of proprietary information. And you'll see that we have a lot of predefined patterns which come included with the DataHawk solution, but you also have the ability to create your own. And if there are any files that you need to exclude, you can also exclude that within the data sensitivity section. So just to recap, we took a look at a server with an anomalous snapshot. We also took a look at how you can use DataHawk's threat protection feature for identifying indicators of compromise. And we just took a bonus look at some of the features that you get with our data classification scans.
Shelley, thank you so much for that outstanding presentation and demo. What we're going to do next is head over to some live Q&A to wrap up our session today.
And Teresa, we do have some questions rolling in from the audience here. First one we've got, they're asking if a system is already affected by ransomware, is the replication process taking these corrupted files to the replication vault, or is it getting detected even before that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So if a system's already affected by ransomware, we can take snapshots for threats before they make their way to the vault. So I think that's critical piece number one. Now, the other important thing to note is that anything that is stored in the vault is data locked, which is immutable, the more common term used by the industry, by default. So that'll be on immutably from the beginning. And then the other consideration or thing that I'd like to share with this answer is that the data protection job would stop and not vault the anomalous snapshot. So great question, and that hopefully that helps our audience member.
Okay, super. Yeah, next one here, they've got data in AWS S3, Azure, and Google Drive, as well as on a local intranet file server or file servers. So the question is, are the integrations that can find and classify, or are there integrations that can find and classify all my data?
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to ask about as well. So another really great question. I'm sure they'll all be amazing today. So to answer that question, I think a lot of organizations are in that situation where you have data across the varying hyperscalers, as well as even on-prem. And so the way that DataHawk would work is any of the data that you've protected through Cohesity backups or even resides on a Smart Files view. And a Smart Files view is a file share. As long as you're protecting that data with Cohesity, we can classify it. If it's not being protected or housed by our tool set, then we wouldn't be able to.
Okay,
All right, fair enough. And yeah, our audience is amazing, so they always have good questions. What here's another one. What classification methods does DataHawk use?
Yeah, so DataHawk is using regex and NER classification methods to scan data and discover significant and sensitive information within the data set or pool. What's happening is that the regex, or also known as regular expressions, they're detecting and classifying data by recognizing the syntax pattern of the data's characters. And what that means, an example of that would be basically a data string in the form of, say, ABCDEFG at example.com would be recognized and classified as an email address. So that's the regex pattern. Now, the NER is the named entity recognition, where basically an advanced neural network-based technique is analyzing entities and unstructured data, identifying that hidden personal information and categorizing it that way. So we're using a couple different methods to be able to leverage that.
Okay. All right, great. Next question here. With respect to data classification, are there any audit capabilities included? So, for example, if you have ITAR controlled data that you need to restrict from, foreign national employees.
Yeah, so there's a number of built-in patterns that can help with commercial-based audit needs, which is what really you'd be talking about here. With ITAR specifically, though, I'd recommend that you talk with our product management team. I'd recommend that you talk with our product management team about your tagging needs there, because it's a little bit challenging to elaborate more or less over a webinar in terms of where we could take that. But a conversation with one of our product managers would actually be really worthwhile there.
Okay. All right. Super. Next question here. Are you able to only update changed files rather than a complete overwrite?
Yeah, so what we typically recommend from that perspective is a full system restore, since oftentimes impacted files can destroy the integrity of applications running on a server. So that's really the critical reason. I know I've seen this in the past as well. Let's say that today you had some sort of cyber attack, but last week you did the latest application update for XYZ application, but you find that the activity of the cyber attack actually happened 2 weeks ago. You would never want to restore just individual files back 2 weeks, because they just wouldn't line up with the application updates. So that's a huge consideration in terms of what we recommend. Now, that being said, we do offer granular recovery of files through our regular restore workflows if needed. I know something that commonly comes up are DLL-based recoveries. Again, you have to be careful if you did a recent update, but as long as you hadn't updated things, you definitely could grab that individually.
Okay, excellent. For this next one, they're wondering if you can give an example of what a cohesity deployment might look like.
Yeah, that's a great question. So something like this is oftentimes a little bit better seen visually, but let's just talk through what that could look like. So to me, we start with the data. So most of you tuning in today probably have data on-prem, in the cloud, at the edge, and it's probably all different types of data, from files and objects to, you might be using VMware vSphere, you could be using Hyper-V, you probably have physical servers, so you probably have have a mixture of items and data in your environment. Now, from the Cohesity side, a typical deployment looks like you basically would have a cluster of Cohesity nodes that you would deploy. Our team helps with sizing to make sure you have what you need. Now, the Cohesity deployment can be in physical devices. It could be virtual appliance and vSphere. It actually could be cloud deployed. So we offer a few different things there. We also have backup as a service where you're not even deploying any Cohesity at all. But long and short, you're going to have some form of Cohesity deployment. And then what you'll do from there is register your sources. It doesn't matter if you have Cohesity nodes on-prem. It can protect, as long as you register your cloud workloads, you can protect your cloud workloads back to on-prem. You can do your on-prem workloads to on-prem, or you could flip it and you could do similar with the cloud. So a lot of flexibility, but it all starts with a Cohesity cluster with a few nodes sized appropriately. And then just start protecting. Once those sources are registered, start protecting that data, and then you can expand from there. In addition to what we talked about today with DataHawk, we can help you with dev test. We have replication, archival, disaster recovery. And then even further out beyond that, we have a lot of integrations with security partners. So you can take that data, and if there's some form of anomalous activity, you can actually evaluate it with your own SIM SOAR tool, if you would like, beyond what I showed you today on what we can do with Cohesity DataHawk. So a lot of flexibility in deployment and a lot of capabilities once you get started with your initial backups. So very powerful.
Excellent. Yeah, no, a lot of flexibility and power there. Really interesting. Well, Teresa, that's about all the questions that we have time for today. If somebody wants to get started with Cohesity, though, what do you recommend as a next step?
Yeah, well, I would recommend going out to our website at cohesity.com. We do have a DataHawk page. We spent a lot of time talking about DataHawk today. We also can, there's a chat option in there, and we can help you get started. So yeah, go to the webpage. I think that's really the best way to do this.
All right, excellent. Well, thanks so much for being here today and for bringing us up to speed on Cohesity. Really appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
All right, great presentation. Thank you so much, Teresa. I just brought up the poll question here for everyone out there that says, what additional information would you like about the Cohesity solution? And we do want to get your feedback on this poll. These polls go directly back to the presenters, and they use this feedback to measure, what they can do as their next step, what they can do to help you learn more, if they can get you connected with someone to give you your own personal demo or get you some additional resources. So we do want to get your feedback there on the poll. And I will leave that up while I announce our final set of prize winners on the MegaCast today. So let's see, we have one more Apple iPad Air to give out, as well as an Amazon $300 gift card. I'll first announce the winner of the Amazon $300 gift card. This is going to Carrie Good of Colorado. Congratulations, Carrie Good of Colorado. And then for that final Apple iPad Air in your choice of color, this is going to Charlotte Camp of South Carolina, the great state of South Carolina. Congratulations, Charlotte Camp. Congratulations, all of our prize winners on the MegaCast today. All right, if you haven't answered the poll, now is the time to do it because we are about to wrap up today's event. If you have answered the poll, I want to remind you to check out the handouts tab there. There is link number 6. That'll take you to a solution brief on the Cohesity DataHawk solution that covers how it provides threat protection and data intelligence for cyber recovery. So make sure that you check out that solution brief there. You can download that as well as the other 5 PDF resources and the URL there from Commvault. So we've got some great resources, some great handouts. Again, make sure that you download those before you go, because they won't be as easily accessible as they are right now once the event has concluded. So again, the handouts tab right there in your audience consoles, solutions 1 through 6, or handouts 1 through 6, make sure that you check those out. All right, thank you to everyone who responded there to the poll question. If you're listening to this event and you're saying, hey, I work for a company where I'd like to present on an upcoming MegaCast or EcoCast event, I've got a great solution around data protection or security or cloud management, reach out to us at connect@actualtechmedia.com, and we would love to chat with you. After the event, you'll be automatically redirected to our Refer a Friend page. This is where both you and your IT coworker friend could win an Amazon $300 gift card. Those drawings are held monthly, so make sure that you fill that out. That's a great additional way to help you increase your odds of winning some Amazon cash. All right, and with that, I want to encourage everyone to look out in your email inbox for an invitation to our next event. Hey, this one's tomorrow. This is a topic on supercharging, optimizing, and managing an on-premises data center. It's an EcoCast event happening tomorrow, sponsored by Rubrik, and we're going to have a great keynote speaker, Joey D'Antonio, talking about this topic. So make sure that you join us there, as well as other upcoming events, always happening every week of the year. All right, and with that, I want to give a big thank you to our audience for joining us on the MegaCast today. I hope that you learned a lot, and I hope that you have a great day. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.